I don't know if you know the term FURU. You obviously have guru, the F being fake guru. I feel like the US is the biggest hotbed for that.
He came on the podcast and I was asking him questions as I normally do, and it was just constantly referring back to his offer, his course or community. And I just didn't release it.
What is the goal with the podcast? What are you trying to achieve with it?
I got threats. I got people, I had someone call me like, we're going to come to your house. You want us to come to your house? I don't like drama. I don't want beef. I've got a wife and kid. And my wife was like, just leave it, leave it. And I was like, look, I can't leave it. I can't. Money shows who they are, their character, And sometimes they might be able to fake or come across in a certain way. And sometimes they were that way, but the money changed them. Or even if it's not money, social influence. I've seen people change because they got some followers. I'm ready to expose people.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our first episode. Today we have our good friend Rizz on today, and this is going to be Titans of Tomorrow. That's what we decided to call our podcast. Later on, we'll discuss why we chose that name. And I'm here with one of my best friends, business partner and housemate, Alex. And of course, Rizz, I'm sure you all know him, podcaster, entrepreneur, trader, father, husband, and the list goes on. Pioneer in the industry. So Rizz, thank you very much for joining us.
No, it's my pleasure, man. And I was just smiling loads then just because, it's we've flipped it, we flipped the table, and I'm so happy you're doing this, I'm so happy you're doing this.
Before we actually kick off with the things, I do want to, I've said this to you in private too many times, probably voice notes every time we meet up, but I want to do it publicly too. Bro, you've done something crazy in the industry. You're made an industry that was divided and still is divided. There's a lot of competition, snaking each other, this and that, but you're planting a seed of good. And we're seeing the ripple effects now where other people are starting podcasts, people are collaborating now, or guests that you've had on collaborating. All of your guests that you've had in Dubai, we've connected now. I've gone out for dinner with all of them, me and Alex. So, you're building bridges, and the domino effect will be in the long run, people will see that you were the forefather of this kind of the fixing up the FX industry. So, and also an amazing thing that you do is you could be like very arrogant about your situation, like I'm doing this, I'm the one making this change, and it's my podcast, people shouldn't copy me. But actually the contrary, you are encouraging. Like from the beginning, you say, well, you guys should do one. You guys, WWA, you should jump on a podcast. You're in Dubai, a lot of people, and you've always been pushing. So complete opposite of what maybe a lot of people would do. So, bro, you deserve your flowers, man. You've been doing crazy things, man.
I appreciate it. You said it like 50 times now,
We always thought about it, We always thought about like people collaborate more in the industry will be, I think, way more cleaner, way more professional. We just never took that step, which you did. So that's what you need the credit for. And now you've encouraged us to start something, and we're very excited about it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it, man, because like a big part of like pushing you guys or saying, hey, you guys do it, is one, you've got the personalities for it, you have the value for it, which is very big. A lot of people nowadays, because of the sort of growth of podcasts, everyone's trying to start a podcast, but regardless of that, it's all about the quality, right? And you guys have that. And then I would actually enjoy watching it. So for me, it's a selfish thing. Like I want to watch the podcast you guys do, because then I'll probably learn as well. I'll do things better. It's like yesterday when we were talking, we were just chilling out, we were having a discussion. I learned so much, even just from little things. I had an idea. Remember, I thought this was a great idea, and I threw it at you, and you were like, you should do it this way. And then literally the version of my idea completely changed. I was like, yeah, that's rubbish now.
It's the power of collaboration.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's something we always spoke about, because we used to do all these meetings. Now it's going to be recorded in a podcast, but we used to do all these dinners with business people or traders or whatever the industry was. And we used to always bounce ideas back and forth. And we realized, imagine all these conversations being recorded.
Yes.
I think there will be a lot of value, and not just from our side, but the people that we're speaking with, or in this case yourself.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So the selfish reason that we wanted to do this, and I don't think there's a very monetary gain in doing so, and there's actually costs associated with it.
Yeah.
But my kind of thought process with, I'm happy to put money into this endeavor, because you start off with a small page and you start off with XYZ type of guests, but I know long term, if you build a page like you're building, you're gonna call the attention of big names, and not necessarily in the trading space. For myself, it was all curiosity driven, where I have, I would love to sit on a table and have a conversation with people like Alex Becker, Alex Hormozy, Chris Williamson, these guys that are, titans in their industry, doing big things. And, it's you can have a 2-hour session with them, and yes, there's cameras, but it's, you get to ask them whatever you want, and you can learn whatever you want. And that, people pay 50K for someone's time for 1 hour. So it's, building a page has that benefit, and documenting a journey. So that was our kind of selfish reason for starting. So What were the reasons you started your Words of Rizdom podcast?
It was very similar, very, very similar in terms of I just enjoy conversations. I know that I'm very guilty, and I think a lot of people are guilty of being lost in the phones now, in the social network, and just general distractions, not even just the phones. Even before the phones, we had video games, we had movies, and again, been guilty of it in the past. But you never get that feeling that you get from a conversation, you know, just even back in the day, no podcast, nothing, where you just sit down with someone randomly and you just talk for an hour about whatever, the world, mindset, whatever it may be, but you're engaged in that conversation, and that feeling can't be beaten. So when I first came across Joe Rogan, that was the first podcast I ever came across, as you can imagine, and he was on episode maybe like 300 or something like that, and it was with Russell Brand, that comedian from the UK. And they literally were just talking about perception. Russell Brand was talking about perception, how people can perceive things very differently. Now, like, to me now, that seems obvious, like an obvious sort of way of thinking and sort of a thing to take on board. But at the time, I just never had thought about it, right? How two people can look at the same thing and just see things differently. And I started to, once that sort of, when I listened to that, my awareness just really grew, just from that one sentence or conversation. And from there, I started listening to more and more, obviously conversations, different guests. And I really just thought, like, this is something I would love to do, you know, just speak to people. And I feel like I can do it. And that was probably early 20s at the time, like 2021. And again, it was mainly the selfish reason, right? One, obviously, that you can't beat that feeling, but the other reason is that you can network with people, you can learn from people, and yes, you can document it. Yes, you could grow a brand around it too, but that's only going to help other people too. So it's like 2 in 1. You help yourself, but you help others by just helping yourself, you know? And I watched this. It was recently. Mr. Beast went on a podcast. I can't remember his name, unfortunately, but he literally did a 3-hour podcast, and the guy was obviously very, like, a fan of Mr. Beast, very interested in his mind and his knowledge on the algorithm and YouTube. So he spent the whole podcast talking about that. And Mr. Beast kept saying to him, like, you know, your guests aren't going to be bothered about it. He goes, I don't care. This is for me. You know, I'm doing this for me. Like, I'm interested in it. I love it. You know, he spent the whole 3-hour podcast just talking about stuff he wanted to talk about. Yeah. And yet it still did well because other people are interested in that too. You know, and it really, that reinforced for me, like, it's fine to get what you want out of it. You know, just like you were saying, like, same thing, just get what you guys want out of it. And I promise you now, everyone out there will get back. That's why want you guys to do it, because I know that the sort of questions you'll ask, the sort of things you'll extract will be beneficial for me. And I know that the sort of guests that you'll have on, as you say, titans, I'm excited.
Very cool, bro. So now you're probably, with the backlog you have of things to upload, it's probably a 6-month upload schedule you've already prepped. Bro, everybody's watching you right now on Twitter, on Instagram, where you're everywhere actually. But I think one of the most noteworthy things that stands out to me was that you're a machine, man. You're non-stop, and it shows, bro. People are very impressed by your work ethic, and that acts as an inspiration that they can put into their own life. Okay, Rizz is now flying around the world, banging out episodes. And once he's flying around, then he's doing the full production behind it. He's doing the TikToks and the reels, and then the captions, and then the daily so voice notes you do. You got a whole infrastructure around that. You're building a true brand, and that's very inspiring. But now you've probably like 70 episodes all in, and you've met all kinds of traders. You've met basically half of the US scene, all of the UK scene, all of the Dubai scene. And obviously we're like 15 hours away from the US people, and different culture, different mindset, different way of living. But you're probably one of the most unique people because you've had conversations with the most global network of traders. Obviously having your own community and meeting all these students from all over the world, but also, you know, traders that are notable in the industry. In doing so and having lengthy conversations with all these types of people, what kind of things have you learned in sense of the differences between the UK people or the US people or the Dubai people?
In terms of differences, it's mainly like cultural upbringing more than anything, right? It'll just be like UK people are a bit more reserved versus like Dubai, they'll have a wide, various amounts of experience with international people, because obviously a lot of people who grow up here, they go to school with people from all over the world. So they're getting access to like such a rich culture very early on, while people in the UK can be quite sheltered. You know, I speak to a lot of people where they haven't even traveled a lot, right? So they're the key differences. Like with the US, for example, they're a lot more confident, right? They're a lot more confident people, a lot more, in a way, like boisterous, if you will, a bit more out there, you know. They are a lot more polarizing as well a lot of the time. But in terms of like their characteristics in the trading side, that's the interesting bit, is that it's very similar, right? They share very similar journeys. There'll be different aspects down to that upbringing. But in terms of the actual trading aspect, technicals or mindset or their knowledge or their journey, very, very similar, you know, in terms of like periods of isolation to really focus, or stepping away from putting importance on just technicals and onto the mindset or their habits and routines. So it's quite interesting because not only in trading, but in business as a whole, it really comes down to this cliche stuff. You know, the whole motivational talk and you know, make sure you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe. Like all these things that we hear about and watch the motivational talks. There's a reason why they're so popular. There's a reason why you know, we keep hearing them. It's because they're true. But it's the difference is the people who just listen to it and just, okay, this is good affirmation or good word, or get a bit motivated, or the people who actually go, okay, I need to apply this mindset, apply this work ethic. And that's something I've realized not only from just the traders, because I've had like a couple, just 2 or 3 interviews with like a boxer, a musician, and like a social media agency owner. Same principles there, exact same principles: mindset, determination, work ethic, being disciplined. You know, it's the exact same. So my aim is to slowly tap into, and they might not be like big people, but just tap into different aspects, maybe outside of trading, just to see is the same blueprint, right? Is it the exact same blueprint to be successful in whatever field? And I have a feeling that you'll probably find the same in terms of the titans that you'll interview. It will be very similar, even if, and the beauty is you'll have a very wide range, I bet, and it'll be interesting to connect those dots.
So as you mentioned, routines, discipline, all of this, and we've already, well, we know you are basically recording 3 podcasts a day all over the world, traveling. How's that been for you when it comes into setting up a proper routine or having that discipline to then put that together with all the systems that you're building to know, I need to post this on TikTok, I need to do this voiceover that we know you do and all of this stuff?
So like over recent weeks, it's been a lot. You know, over the last 2-3 weeks, I've flown to New York for like 3 days, did 5 podcasts a day for 2 days. And then I went to Gran Canaria, just 1 day there and back. So I went in the morning, filmed a podcast, came back at the night. Then I came here and I've done, I think, 6 or 7. That's not the usual routine.
Okay.
It's kind of similar to an example that was Kevin Hart gave on Logan Paul's podcast, where they said, you know, what's your routine? Because Mark Wahlberg's doing this. He's getting up at 3 a.m. and doing you know, this workout and then praying and then doing this and this. And Kevin Hart goes, look, that's his routine when he's trying to achieve a specific goal, right? Maybe he's got a movie and he needs to get in this shape and the only time he can work out is at this time, etc. So that's a very heightened and over-exaggerated routine. So right now, that's essentially what I've done the last 2-3 weeks. And I have to take on board that, yes, as you said, like I've got a podcast to drop on this day. I need to do these reels. I need to do these posts. I have this, you know, all the other aspects as well, family life. But when I realize I'm in a more heightened state, maybe I've got more on my plate on one avenue, so like the podcast, for example, it's hard to accept, but I've had to accept, okay, these other areas will have to be toned down slightly, you know? And that's the only way it's going to be manageable. That's the only way I'm going to still be able to be efficient. Because otherwise, the podcast will suffer. These other areas will all suffer. So usually, hopefully I'm getting back. And then I think I've got one more trip to Miami to do some podcasts. And then I'll have a solid base at home, probably have the year covered in terms of podcasts. And then I can get back to the sort of more balanced routine, you know. But I kind of just accept that certain things are going to be sacrificed or have to be toned down in order for me to achieve what I'm looking to achieve on the, say, podcast side. But it is difficult because I'll be filming a podcast whilst one's about to drop. And I'm like, okay, just before I film, hey, everyone, make sure you click this. Hey, welcome everyone to it, you know? So it's like, it's an interesting balance. It can be difficult. It can be hard. But that's essentially what it takes, right? That's the sacrifice. You know, if there's no sacrifice, there's no victory.
Beautiful. So you've been back to the point of, you know, the different types of traders you've come across. My perception, because obviously I haven't met a lot of the traders across the world, the perception I get of the US people specifically, I don't know if you know the term, FURU. So you obviously have guru, the F being fake guru. I feel like the US is the biggest hotbed for that. I'm not obviously not saying any names or anything, but I do feel like they have a big flexing culture, and that's kind of their way of doing things. Whereas in the UK, less, and in Dubai, I think you're living your life, so it looks like you're flexing, but I don't think there's anybody actually out here truly flexing in the way that people in the US do. And that's fine. That's maybe in their culture. It's the way they dress. It's the way they are. And it's also with the rap culture and so forth. It's the lifestyle they have. But do you think with, you know, meeting them, obviously when they're on camera as well, they're putting on a show maybe, or they're being a character for the camera. But then you've also had conversations with these guys in private. What kind of character traits are you seeing in them? And does that kind of follow through from what I might be seeing on the internet down to actually what they are in real life?
Definitely. So like, I'm ready to expose people. No, imagine. Could you imagine? But no, like, it's a very interesting question because you are right. And I have had podcasts where, you know, I'm going into it thinking, okay, there's slight negative connotation apparently, or a slight negative feel to this individual based on the way they're marketing or based on their image online. And sometimes, yeah, you sit down with them and I sit there and they might say certain things and I'd be like, that as a trader, that doesn't really make sense, or that doesn't really sound like something that would be genuine. You know, they might be, okay, I flipped this account to obscene amounts, right? Mm-hmm. And then you try and ask them about, you know, what was that like, or what was the sort of journey, and it's very blasé, very like, you know, kind of skipping over, or doesn't sound realistic. And it's hard because I do get people say to me, Rizz, you need to, you know, get track records from them and audit them or whatever. And I'm like, look, I'm not an auditor. Who am I to say to someone, hey, you show me your books, you show me that you're legit for me to talk to you? And in reality, I'm there to talk to them. And my aim is really to ask them questions that would then, I'm not trying to expose them, but if they expose themselves through their answers, that's on them. And I have met a few people where they don't seem like the story they're telling is as genuine. But it's hard to tell sometimes, I'll be honest with you, because it's, you know, in trading, it's very easy to say the right stuff. You know, risk management, psychology, etc. And it's quite easy for people to do that. I think in terms of lifestyle in America, it's from what I know anyway, what I've heard, it's quite easy to rent cars, for example. It's quite easy to rent, I think, even jewelry, for example. And therefore, that's probably why it's more, you know, such a higher rise over there in comparison to other countries. And I think maybe that style of lifestyle is more promoted there as well.
When you interview all these people, and you tap into things such as technical analysis or psychology or all these things, where do you think these people incline more to speak, or what's your sense when you're speaking to what the vast majority of traders in terms of what's technical analysis or what's psychology, or what's the importance of both together?
That's the interesting thing, because sometimes I've spoken to one guy, for example, and he turned around and said, I don't journal. I don't think you need to journal. And then for me, that's like a red flag. You know, we discussed this on that roundtable, right? And it's interesting because there's different perspectives. So I kind of respect that as well. But it's interesting because there are those who just follow like a cliche, you know, sort of the same blueprint that everyone talks about. And you can kind of see it because they're just saying, yeah, you need to risk manage. And then they'll just leave it as that. While there's those who then actually understand what that means, can give variations of risk management, can go into more detail of risk management. So essentially, it's like people can be a trader, right? And they can watch a YouTube video and then they can understand terms, understand surface level knowledge, and that's it. Versus those who actually have more in-depth knowledge, right? So then they can go into one specific thing. So let's take like, I don't know, liquidity, for example. Someone could say, liquidity grab, done, finished, that's it. But then there's someone who could go much deeper into liquidity, into like 10, 20 different topics. And that's when I can normally go, okay, this guy has done his research. This guy has information. He has a lot more value than, say, this other person who's just said, yes, I use liquidity and supply and demand. Finished. Surface level. And that can be an indication of, okay, they might just be a marketer, or they might just be someone who's got that surface level knowledge and they're just trying to peddle something. And that's another thing. If someone comes on and they're literally just constantly mentioning, my course, or this service, or check me out here, again, it's kind of like one of those red flags, you know, of, okay, I understand that, yes, don't get me wrong, you're on a platform, you are here to promote yourself, of course, in some way, but I think there's ways of doing that. I think the best way on a podcast is you promote yourself through how you articulate your thoughts, your knowledge, the experiences that you have, the value you can give, rather than, you know, I've got a McLaren and, you know, check out my Twitter, or go check my Instagram. I used to be, you know, homeless, and now I've got this, you know, and it's just the cliche stuff, right? So I had one guest in particular, and he's not even a big guest, for example. He's not like a social media name or anything, but he came on the podcast and I was asking him questions as I normally do. And it was just constantly referring back to his offer, his, you know, course or community. And I just didn't release it because I just felt like, and that's the only one I haven't released so far.
Okay.
And I wasn't big at the time and I needed episodes, but I just felt like this isn't, there's no value here. There might have been little bits, don't get me wrong. But there was one specific question I asked them, which really made me make that decision, which was the classic, you know, people struggle with, how do you handle learning to trade and your job? And this person had a professional job, academic job. And so I asked him that question, and his answer was just like, you can't do it. But that doesn't make sense then, because you've done it apparently. So, you know what I mean? And there was just like a lack, and there was nothing on the back of that. It was just, you can't do it. There was no like, because of this or because of that, like expanding on it. And then every other answer would just be like, oh, you know, we have this and we have that. You know, inside our community, we have this. So I was just like, okay, I made the decision. I won't release this one.
So it's the surface level things of, you know, you can make a statement, but you don't qualify or explain it. And usually there's depths to it of you can say, well, you can't do it, but you can do it if you do X, Y, and Z. You know, yesterday we were at dinner and you introduced me to a gentleman and I actually got up, like in the middle of the conversation, got up and shook his hand. I was like, man, this is I've met a lot of traders. This is the first time I've ever met a trader and I've actually had a conversation about trading. Not about the fluff of the industry or the fluff of psychology or, you know, surface level things of just one-liners that everyone's heard on TikTok and they just repeat that one-liner. Yeah. They don't know why they're saying it. They can't explain why they're saying it. They have no depth beyond that statement. But then when you meet certain people and they actually truly understand trading, they're truly in it and it's their passion. You see it in their voice, tonality, vibration. They know what they're talking about. And I'm interested in this as well. Does it translate with the type of mentor that you see around? Because I guess you've had a discussion with a lot of mentors. With the way that they're promoting themselves, with the lifestyle that they're showing, do you see a correlation between, let's say, the typical guy who's showing lifestyle with the car and so forth, and predominantly his message is kind of, look how good my life is, therefore your life can be like this, join me, versus the guy that's not really showing anything, but he's purely value driven, educational content, you know, giving value out every single day and doesn't show too much about his life on a, you know, that kind of selling a dream kind of thing. That's fine. People have different approaches, and you know, in the end, it's an attention economy. So people give value to get attention. People show the lifestyle to get attention. So the vessel is not too important. I'm more interested in what does that look like for the students' results. You know, are the people that are drawn in for that kind of lifestyle route, are they having less success? Are they struggling more? Are they in it for the wrong reasons? Or maybe the guy that's coming in, you know, through the value one, is he now coming in where everything's overcomplicated? Now it's, oh, this mentor said this, but this guy told me this. And they just end up confused because there's so many things going on. Whereas other guy would just be, yes, he's showing lifestyle, but he simplifies it and it's a very simple message. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's very interesting because I think there is a correlation. I think there definitely is a correlation. And then I think there is the middle ground. I definitely think there's the middle ground. Because it comes down to, as you say, with a mentor, if they have that title, then they need to have value. They need to have in-depth knowledge, as you said. So like when you shook that guy's hand yesterday, I was like over here basically, and you guys shook in the middle, and I was like, wow. Well, because even me, like when he was explaining as well, like, you know, you can tell, right? You can just tell when someone knows that in-depth knowledge. As we said, that they won't just speak on something and then just leave it there. They'll speak on it and go into more detail, and they'll go into more detail. And if you ask him a question on it, as you did, he'll be able to answer that question, you know, or at least he'll try his best to answer it so that you can understand as well. And that's a skill in itself. So I think when it comes to the correlation, like the marketing person, the lifestyle marketing person, for example, the issue is that if the person is attracted, say the student, let's say, is attracted to that, and that's the reason why they're going to this person, their mindset's already wrong for the industry, wrong for success. So therefore the correlation will probably be very much negative results, right? And they won't know what true value is. So their example of a mentor will be this, whoever this person is. So then, you know, that's why it could even be overwhelming when they then come across the opposite, you know, the complete opposite, where it's very complex. And that can easily happen as well, because someone is so focused on the value, on the knowledge, that they don't know how to potentially convey that in a more simplistic manner for someone who is just starting out, or for someone who maybe has been focused on the lifestyle and they do have the passion for trading, but they just haven't got the correct mindset yet. And that can be off-put them slightly due to the complexity. And then I think there's the middle ground. And I think the middle ground is where it's okay. I understand where people might hate on the middle ground, because you have someone who might have the lifestyle, but because they've actually worked for that lifestyle. They've traded to that lifestyle if they're a trader. And therefore, you know, it's like, imagine you guys traded, right? And well, you have traded, right? And you have a nice lifestyle. But then people said, you shouldn't have that lifestyle because of, you know, these other marketers who do it. You guys shouldn't do that. But the reality is, if that's what you enjoy, if you like, let's say, nice clothes, or you like a nice holiday, why should you hold yourself back just because of these people, right? What matters is then you match that with value, right? Which is what you guys do very, very well. And some others out there do as well. Now that's the middle ground. I like the middle ground because it's a true example of the journey, a true example of value matching a lifestyle, but a true lifestyle that's not faked. Right, it's something that has been grown into, and if you even are able to, if they've been lucky enough to document it, you'll see the growth. You'll see from back in, let's say, like uni days, for example, to then where you are now. Or even for people who have been the hardship, who have gone through, say, addiction or whatever it may be, going from there to where they are now. And I think it does come down to the value. As we talked about in terms of this industry, the issue has been that there has been a lack of value and too much on the other side. And as we discussed yesterday, is like we need more good people to do things like this, whether it's conversations or even if it's just be content creators, right? And I understand if some people don't like content creation, and that's completely fine. They don't need to, they don't have to. But if they want to, but they're holding themselves back due to the negative side, right? And due to being put off by that negative side and the sort of hate they may see over there or not being compared to them, they need to do it. Why? Because we need a better example to be shown. And what I've always said is, if there's more real people in this industry with value, it's going to be much harder for those fake people to stay around.
Yep.
And the reality is these people are there. They just don't want to show up too much on these social media platforms because we've met them all over, but they're never on social media. And they just don't want to show up because of the nickname that comes with it, because they don't truly put themselves in that position.
Exactly,
so.
The flip side I want to throw, because I'm in complete agreement with what you've said, and that's something we're very cautious of. And I want to be cognizant of the fact that people are watching us, and we can be very one-dimensional. I thought and say, okay, we have a curriculum, I have a curriculum, therefore just learn that. But people don't think in a bubble. They and when you build relationships with people, you're speaking to them for years, and they look up to you, you have a responsibility now, because they're not just looking at you for the technicals. They're saying, okay, Alex is in the gym every day.
Yes.
Alex every day got this daily routine. Alex, then they're going to be thinking, well, okay, he's not just a trader. I want to emulate everything he's doing, because if that's the position I want to be in, why am I just going to follow the technicals? I'm going to follow everything he's doing. And what people fall victim of is they forget the responsibility they have, because they've got a lot of followers, and maybe it doesn't feel real to them because they're not meeting them on a day-to-day basis. They're just numbers on a screen. But when you realize that these people are looking up to everything you're doing, then they'll start to emulate your behavior. And you see that a lot with the group of people that are in a mentorship. They'll be very like the mentor that they have. Now, if you're leading by example in that way, you can either instill brilliant habits, and you can kind of show them how a daily routine is important, or how to live your life, be a family man, and so forth. But you can also have the polar opposite, where you see, okay, they have a wife at home, but they're partying all the time, or they're on a boat all the time, or they're just flexing lifestyle. Now, what is that individual who's very impressionable? He might be 18 years old. He's looking up and, really looking up and edifying these people. What is he going to do? Okay, the route to success, the academy itself, yes, but they're going to be thinking, oh, okay, well, he lives a lifestyle of partying. He lives a lifestyle of maybe degeneracy. He lives a lifestyle of, okay, when he made money, he put it into a liability, which is a car. Now, what the first thing he's going to do is makes a bit of money. He's going to lease an expensive car, probably out of his means, already putting himself into a debt or already into a liability. Yep. So, the people in the industry, we don't always realize the power we have to influence a lot of people. And it's a responsibility beyond just we have an academy. Yeah. And of course, that, and you've been with a lot of traders. You've had a lot of guests on your show, and I'm sure you've realized a lot of the time they're coming onto your platform to use you. They see, okay, you've got traction now. You've got a lot of eyes, and it's like a lottery where they'll think, okay, this guy got 300k views, this guy got 100k, but this guy got 10k. What will I get? So they're gonna come on and they wanna say the best one-liners to get a bit of polarity, and always want to push their products. When you see someone that is very obviously just trying to use your platform, and I'm sure you've come across those characters, how do you navigate that?
I navigate it in a few ways. Obviously, in terms of the questioning, right? So, like, not allowing them to control the conversation. Obviously, as a podcast host, you have to allow them to speak. And sometimes allowing them to speak shows their true colors anyway. That's normally how it works. But then equally, if you recognize that fact, you have to be able to navigate the conversation to areas where they need to prove their worth, prove their value, prove their values, most of all. Because if they can't express who they are, and that's the thing with podcasters, a lot of people where they don't have the right values, they will probably avoid podcasts, because podcasts are unscripted, right? And they're not planned. So therefore it's hard to then get on and then have someone who might throw a curveball at you. And if you're used to scripted, you're used to being able to really think about what you're going to say and plan what you're going to say, they are a bit put off by podcasts. But for the ones who, let's say, come through and they try it, it's an interesting one, because you have very little control in terms of, you can't control what this person's going to say. And you don't want to be aggressive to the person. And it's still something I'm learning, I'm still learning, and that's the beauty of the podcast space, is that you can come in and you might have watched tons of podcasts before, but until you actually do it, then you start to you might have picked up some habits, some traits, some advice from well-known podcasters or successful podcasters. But then when it comes to you doing it, you will find that even if you've let's say for example Chris Williamson, I watched some advice that he gave, which was don't ask a question. So do you like Dubai? Yes or no? Or do you like Dubai because of this or that, right? And that's something I was guilty of. But even though I've watched his advice, I've still found myself from time to time just still slipping out, right? And so with these sort of interviews, you need to be a bit ruthless. You have to be a little bit harsh. You need to put them on the back foot, essentially. And it might not be natural to you. You're not maybe a confrontational person, or you don't like drama, especially obviously in our space, for example. But it's your duty as the podcast host, right? And not only because you're the host of your podcast, but the audience. That's what they're relying on you to do. So I've had it where I had someone come on who used to have a large company. It was called SoFX in the UK. I didn't know them at the time when they were around. I remember seeing their page here and there, and it was literally just a network of lifestyle marketers, right? Young guys,
right?
Yeah, it's like Signals
providers.
Yeah, and then broker
I've
affiliate.
seen them around.
Yeah, it was just a network.
They had a branch in Spain, in Barcelona.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They tried to jump over. Wow, but yeah, exactly though. Like they just had a network of lifestyle marketing, just young guys, each one getting some form of supercar, doing there's a famous picture I think where one's got like a purple Lamborghini and he's eating Novikov off the back of the spoiler or something. So using those things. But in terms of the young, so then you have to question, okay, experience. So they had this company and ended up getting shut down by the FCA. So someone referred one of the guys to the podcast. His name is George Lymph. Well, his actual name is George Limpfield, but he goes by Lymph now, probably to avoid the Google search. But he was a nice guy, and people referred to get him on the pod. I didn't know who he was, and this is one of the negatives of what you were talking about earlier of when you're doing so many pods. This is one of the negatives of doing that, because obviously you want to have time to research your guest and a bit more in-depth information as well. Luckily, I had one of my friends say, "Oh, you're having him on the pod. By the way, he's from here." So I was like, "Oh, okay." I didn't cancel the pod. I was like, okay. For me, it's like, okay, this is a challenge. This is a challenge for me because, as you said, how do you navigate these? And I hadn't had that opportunity to really navigate something like that. So let me challenge myself. I want to hope I do a good job, right? First of all, he never mentioned it to me. So I was like, okay, am I going to have to ask him? If he doesn't mention it, do I need to mention it? So I had to prepare myself for that. If he does mention it, where do I take it from there? Yeah. So he didn't mention it, but he mentioned something. So I grabbed onto that something. That's my job. I had to grab onto you said that you found yourself alone a couple of years ago, for some reason. Why? Oh, I had this company and this friend. Oh, what was that company? I think I recognize that company, and then have to go into it. And I never go into it even then I wasn't trying to attack the guy, but I needed to get answers because that's what the audience is going to want.
Yeah.
But even then I probably could have done a better job, right? In reflection. At the time I thought, I think I did a decent job. But in taking the audience's response, they would have wanted a bit more push. Right? And that's fine, because that's where I take the criticism on board to say, okay, if this happens again, because I didn't plan for it to happen in the first place, if it does though, I know I need to be a bit more ruthless. So I had actually did a podcast here in Dubai, and I had someone on, and then his story just seemed so far-fetched. And because of the prior experience, I said, your story seems very far-fetched, doesn't seem genuine. I'm not going to say you're a fake or anything like that, but I'm going to have to go and do my own research. And I said, make sure you go do your own research too. And again, that's maybe if I hadn't done that previous one, I wouldn't have been as, not aggressive, what would the right word be, as forward speaking, just putting it out there and saying, I don't believe that story. I have to research it. I'm not calling you a liar, but I don't believe the story. So I'm always learning, right? And then these situations, no doubt due to the space and the nature of the space, will probably happen again, right? But it's my job to learn, to navigate better. So how I handle it at the moment is just case-by-case basis. It depends if I have prior knowledge or not. And that's where it comes down to doing your research as a podcast host. I don't think a lot of people might assume, and I did assume to begin with, where you just sit down and you just have a chat. When in reality, there are a lot of technical aspects that people don't realize that make a huge difference.
Right. It's interesting because we discussed this yesterday, that being the host is an art form, because the same guy will go on 3 podcasts and get a completely different outcome on what they said, because the host's job to extract the right thing. And additionally, I can tell you're not a very confrontational guy. You don't want to point a finger and accuse anyone of anything, but there'll be people watching your podcast who are that type of character.
Yeah.
It's within their nature. Maybe they're a fighter. They're very confrontational. So they'll be watching your podcast and get frustrated, like, why is he not asking that? So you got to realize you're catering for an audience of hundreds of thousands at times, and they're all going to have different personality types. So you're representing them as being the host, and you should therefore be asking the questions that they would ask if they were in your shoes. And I can tell you're now, as you've reviewed and start to see what people like to watch, what goes viral and so forth, you've learned how to, the art form of asking the correct question and grabbing the most out of a guest. Sorry, I wanted to ask you. You've actually hit momentum now, and the page is picking up at a very quick pace. And probably by the end of the year, you'll smash 100K. So beyond just the follow account, what is the goal with the podcast? What are you trying to achieve with it? Because from the outside, what I could say is it looks like, indirectly or directly, I don't know if this is your intention, but as we said, you're cleaning up the industry and you're bringing a lot of positive change. And I think these kind of things with longevity do have compounding effects. For example, we see in the education space, you would have thought that the more people that are coming in, the more confusing it gets of who do I follow, or he's telling me this, he's telling me that. I've got a choice of 50 mentors now, whereas 10 years ago, you had a choice of maybe 3, 4. So that can look like a negative on the outside, and maybe it does definitely have its negatives. But the positive is when you have so much competition, like in any marketplace, a monopoly does not birth benefit for the consumer. A monopoly is better. It's a capitalistic thing. Therefore, that's why monopolies are illegal. So, competition births improvements. And same would be in our industry, where the more people you get into it, the fakes get exposed, the fakes don't last. And you'll see it's very rare for a group of guys or whoever, a mentor, to come on and last 5 years. They'll have a wave, they'll secure a bag for 6 months, and then it drops off. Why does it drop off? They didn't provide value, they didn't know what they were talking about, or people didn't find change and went to someone else. So as this competition increases, the true people will stand the test of time. So with the podcast you're doing, I think you're enhancing that effect, because now you're encouraging conversations, you're encouraging collaborations. Now if all of these guys that are in the industry are talking to each other, whereas previously they weren't, they're going to be, okay, well, I like you and I don't like you. And then they'll collab with the right person. And I'm starting to see that, where a lot of your guests and a lot of groups are forming now, where some guys in the US are coming together, which they previously maybe weren't together. And these kind of things will have a domino effect. And who's going to be left behind? The people that are no good, the people that were not doing anything good for the industry. So that's my surface level view. But I wanted to understand your perspective after speaking to so many people, and maybe the own ambitions you have. What kind of plans do you have, or goals, or things you would like to see in the industry change?
So I think quality is one thing, right? The quality of, say, content, conversations, value can increase, because I think one of the main reasons that the podcast has done so well is because it's in person and the quality is quite high, right? And looking to only get higher and higher. And it matters, it's such a small detail. And yes, there are people right now, for example, who have built a very good brand and channels with a very good audience based off doing, say, Zoom interviews, for example. And that's cool. And you can, at the end of the day, the words are the words, right? The value is found in those words. But I'm hoping that we can see a change in terms of quality. I think we're already starting to see that. Some people are starting to replicate, which is cool, because, again, it creates a competitive edge in a positive way. So then it's like, okay, you're now like right next to me, or you're growing. And I've said this before as well. There's someone out there right now who wants to be a podcaster, right? But they're holding themselves back. And they're probably a better podcast than me. That's the truth. They're probably a better host than I could be. But the only reason they're not doing it, or they're not there, or not above me yet, is because they're not taking action. So I'm hoping as well they can see me, like just as I saw Joe Rogan, for example, or I saw other traders who had tried podcasts or done certain things. I hope they can look at me and say, oh, okay, he's done this, and look what he's done, and I think I can do that, or I think I can do that better. And then they go do it. Especially if they start hearing the words, whether from the podcast or from like me being a guest, saying, I held myself back. And if I didn't hold myself back, I probably would have been 10x where I would be right now, for example. But then all it had to do was just start and look at the momentum go. In terms of changing the industry as well, I think I want to be able to give the smaller guy a voice. That's something I just clocked onto literally like the last episode I dropped with Eunice. And then I reflected back onto another, the last few episodes where they've been smaller people, no followings really, or they might not even have education or anything or service to provide in terms of a product. But yet those interviews are done very well, right? And they had value. They still had a story to be told. So I feel like that's something that I've just thought about over maybe the last day or two, of being a little bit of a niche, a little bit of a niche where a lot of podcasts, obviously, and platforms, they want the big people only. And I thought, or the people at least who have a social presence. So like I've had my mum on, for example. I've had my brother-in-law on. And yet people still they might not got as much views, but they resonated with the story, and especially because they're not traders as well, but they still resonated with it. So I feel that is one aspect I do want to tap into. I want to be able to just I love the creative process. I love being able to try and create something unique that hasn't been done, or if it has been done, do it better. So that's what I'm excited about. That's why, I could probably grow an audience to X amount and then it will start to plateau because, as we've discussed before, it just stays the same. So how do you innovate? And that's what I think I enjoy the most. Like, how do you innovate? See, with trading, it's hard to do that in terms of you can try and learn more and you can try and make little changes, but you don't want to just completely switch.
Yeah.
Right? But with this sort of space and this sort of platform, you can innovate any way you want. You could host a podcast in a space station eventually. You know what I mean? Like the creative process is whatever you want it to be. Like we've seen people do podcasts on boats. We've seen people do podcasts in hotel lobbies. We've seen people do podcasts with, I think I saw one recently where it was like with an Amish person who's like completely, not around technology or anything like what we're used to. So imagine having that sort of guest on a podcast. What sort of questions would you ask? So like there's so much that goes into podcasting that is kind of like a lot of freedom to go play the field, And I think in terms of like the future and the changes we want to see, both in the industry, hopefully it will just be a positive force, allow people to see an example, allow people to put more focus on quality and value, but then equally giving the smaller person a voice, right? Giving them a platform, allowing them to potentially grow, because there's so many good people out there, good traders, people who have value, but they're just not content creators, right? And they need a platform where they can go and then just share their story, and maybe that will give them the little fire that then allows them to have a career, whether it's in trading or whether they start content creating, or just generally they're able to say to their kids, for example, or their family, like, look at this amazing podcast I did. Look how good it looks. It got this, look at all these good feedback, and even if that's just the highlight for them, that's it. I think it's a good feeling, And my biggest thing has always been to help people. And at the end of the day, the podcast is such an easy way to help people, because essentially, it's like we said earlier, you're helping yourself. So imagine if you can help yourself, and as a byproduct of doing that, you help so many others. It's like one of the easiest ways, I think, of being able to sort of achieve that goal in one way.
So I was gonna tap into something that you were mentioning, because I think the audience or your audience is clear that you're here for a bigger impact. And as we know you now, and of course we agree on that too. So, but we also know that we're business people, we're ambitious, and with attention, business opportunities will come. Have you still thought on how to long-term monetize the audience, or what's your plans on monetization when it comes into what is going to be your brand? Have you ever thought about it, or you're still navigating and figuring out what's your plans with it?
No, it's a good question, because when I first started, I had no sort of thoughts about monetization or making money from it. Yes, I did want to build an audience, build a brand, be able to connect with that brand, do something with that brand, right? Even if it was like host a meetup, right? And yeah, you might charge people even if it's just to cover the cost of the meetup, but just create beautiful things, create things that you don't really see, whether it's networking events, whatever it may be. But I didn't really have anything concrete. For me, for the first time ever, to be fair, because a lot of my other things, whether like trading, for example, you can imagine when I started trading, I'm like, okay, 2 years in, I'll have 6 figures, and then I'll do this, and I'll buy this for this person, and whatever it may be. Or before that, your business, I'm going to have this business, same thing, I'm going to do this, and plan it all out. Podcasting was probably the first thing where I literally did not plan it. I just said, I want to do podcasting. I want to be a podcast host. I love podcasting. And now I know that I can, actually start very easily. I have no excuses now. My excuses were kind of like, that's a poor excuse now. So I started. And I just started, and then I didn't think about the money. And I didn't think about even like, what would I do if I grew? I didn't even know if I would grow. I hoped I would, and I hope I'd do a good job. And to be honest with you, if you go back and watch some of the first ones, I was terrible at podcasting. Because I thought literally podcasting was just sit there and just talk and laugh and joke, and basing it off of course some of Joe Rogan's ones where he's just smoking and drinking with his friends. But then I realized later, after I started a bit and got a bit of feedback, I realized that he's a comedian, number one, right? So as a comedian, it's very easy to be able to just have a laugh and a joke because you're known as a comedian. Not to say he doesn't have value, but it's more he's known as an entertainer. So if he's laughing and joking with his friends, people will be entertained, especially because his friends are all comedians too. So that makes sense. But I didn't see it that way. Originally, I just thought, look how well his podcast does, and just laughing and joking with his friends. I would love to do that. Imagine making a brand where you can just laugh and joke with your friends. And yeah, you get value from the conversation, but it doesn't work that way. So I had to learn that. And then as it did grow, and as we started to build that momentum, opportunities have been coming in, as you can imagine, with this with the trading space, and I have to be very careful as well because I've never partnered with anyone. I've never done like a partnership or affiliate with anyone. So it was interesting, and it was interesting to see like the sort of opportunities that were coming through. So then now I'm like at a position where I'm looking at, okay, what can I do? Because my aim is to kind of take the Mr. Beast approach of whatever income I can make from the channel, whether it's through the views. The views, you have to be doing like millions per month to really like have an income, But in terms of like maybe partnerships or even just monetizing it myself in some way, whether it's like, I don't know, merchandise or creating a brand myself or a company myself, but being able to bring some form of income so I can make it bigger and better. Because the way I see it is like I've done this much so far off my own back. So imagine now if I was getting an income from it, I can go travel to this person. Or if someone, big guest, you know, maybe even outside the trading is like, you know, I'll come on your podcast, but you know, you have to come to me. Or vice versa, I can be like, I'll fly you out, right? Just because not only will, you know, kind of again, the selfish reason, hey, if I want to have, you know, I'm trying to think of someone, I can't think of anyone, but like whoever it may be, let's say they're over in America and they're like, yeah, I'm not flying to the UK to come to your studio in Nottingham, this small city. I'm not coming there. I'm like, cool. I'm going to fly to you. I'm going to rent this studio here. Or I'm going to bring the cameras to your place and, you know, we're going to sort it out, right? Mm-hmm. I could do that now, but then it's like the podcast is better for the podcast to pay for itself, right? Plus to expand the team, plus to increase the, you know, to be able to do those ideas we talked about, you know, and to be able to create at a higher level, it takes investment. And I don't think a lot of people out there know how much, like, let's take Mr. Beast as an example, prime example, millions. He puts millions into his videos constantly, just constantly recycling it over and over. And that's a prime example of what, if you want to be great and you really want to have that bigger impact, you have to be willing to do it. And I'm willing to do it. And that's why, like, I'm just playing the field right now. I'm like, okay, there's some opportunities on the table, some really great things that I'm actually excited about. And that's another thing. So, like, because I didn't see it coming, and because I've been doing what I've been doing for so long, not the podcast side, but more like obviously the education side or being in the trading space side, it gets very mundane. And it's hard to get excited about those things because it's very repetitive. Versus podcasting is new because the guest is new every time, very excited, and it's, you know, new conversations, get to learn more. But then in terms of like these opportunities as well of like, okay, how can I monetize this? You know, it's another business venture. Let's say like a merchandise, for example, you know, or clothing brand. Like how would I do that? I've never thought about doing that. How would I use my creative process to try and do that successfully? Will I be successful at it? Will I not? And that's exciting. You know, a lot of people might be scared. They might be like, oh, you know, I don't want to take that risk. You know, once if I put it out and no one buys it, right? But I find it exciting because it's like, if I have the creative process to create a podcast in a certain way, a certain style, do my thumbnails this way or my trailers this way, and that's worked, can I then replicate that same creative process but in a different avenue and be successful at it? And I think it's the challenge really that makes it exciting. You know, the potential of failing that makes it exciting. The potential of, oh, it didn't work out, but okay, and now it can be better. That makes it exciting. And I think that's where a lot of people don't realize that, look, you can be successful at something, but that's why a lot of successful people don't just stop there. You know, it's because they want excitement. They want something that's going to give them fire to be like, oh, I want to keep going. Oh, this is something new. You know, so that's kind of as part of the sort of monetization process. That's where it's actually exciting because it's like, okay, I want to do this. It's still with my values. I don't want to sell myself out. I don't want to be one of them guys. I'm sure we've seen plenty of them in not only our industry but loads of industries where they get some sort of platform suddenly. You know, they were a certain way and suddenly they just sell themselves out. You imagine if I did that. That would be like the complete alter ego of what I built. So I'm careful of that as well. I have to be very mindful because the amount of money that gets thrown at you in this industry, I see why it's so easy to be fake. It's so easy to change because they will throw money at you. You know, even when I wasn't even as big as I am now in terms of the podcast side. Even when I'm not, way before I was big or even did a podcast, brokers try and throw money at you, prop firms trying to throw money at you, and they're not even asking you to research them. Just like, here's, let's say 10K, just promoters there.
Because they don't want you to look into them.
Exactly. And then, you know, that kind of opened my eyes to like how I understand why people choose the easy route. But again, it comes down to your values. You know, are your values strong enough?
Yeah, and that's where it's very, very important, and we're very cautious about the personal brand because some people think their personal brand is just socially, like in terms of social media wise, but it's also socially when it comes into meeting people in Dubai, who you are, and we realize that like it's very easy. Dubai looks very big, but in reality, the business people doing good things in here, they're not that much. A lot of people in vacation, but here no. So very easy to flop on one thing and then be that guy that people don't want to be associated with. That's why with collaborations, we've also had issues in the past. So something we've learned is it's not about dequalifying, but if you are not at the same level, it's very difficult because someone's always going to try to show his best or her best face because they know they can grab something from you. But when money comes, money is an amplifier of how you are. So if you're a good person, then you've been lucky with that collaboration. But if you are not a good person, then money comes and then ego comes with it. Therefore, that's when you start to see, okay, and that's what we've learned. It's not about dequalifying people for not having the money, but it's true that when Wakao, Wally, and myself met, we were at the same position. So we grew together. So we were at the same position, same personality, just grew with it. So something very interesting you mentioned about the collaboration is something we've learned out of it.
Well, it's very rare what you guys have done, to be fair, because as you know, in our space by now, you would have attacked you and you would have attacked Wally, and there'll be social media beef once a year, and you just go back and forth constantly. But you guys have stayed strong from the start to now, and
it's
hopefully
the power
forever.
of a brotherhood. A brotherhood is one of the strongest forces. And as part of this weak men propaganda, you're supposed to be divided. You're supposed to be with girls all the time, which will drain your energy, hookups and so forth. But when you're just around men and you have that masculine energy, it amplifies each other, it pushes you forward. And we've only found benefits in that collaborative force that we have. The views that you're speaking of now, I can see you have a very optimistic view of the industry, and you hope for good. And you can see that with your actions too. But there's also the flip side where not everybody is in that mindset, where you're obviously going to inspire people. You're obviously going to cause good. And just like you've encouraged us to start a podcast. And already we've had a few dinners now, and I've given you advice of like, okay, Rizz, I've been a viewer, I've watched every episode. Here's a few things that I think you should try, or this could be better. And that birthed, the first roundtable that we did. I think that could be a very cool thing, concept going forward, because my belief on that at least was that sometimes you want to hear the guest story and how they got there, and that can be inspirational because you're like, okay, I relate to that guest, and my life is similar and I can follow his path. But then how do you get the same guest to come again and again? You can't always be their life story. So we're like, okay, how about you get a room full of people with different views, and then you have a discussion on topics of trading, and then people get to just sit there and hear different perspectives, and they might be fixed in one way, but then they hear the opposite side, and it opens them up, and becomes a value-driven podcast even more so than you already have. So there's plenty of good in collaboration, and the same to us. Yesterday, you were just giving me so many tips of, try it like this, do this, do this. Advice from experience that you've done. Words of Rizdom. But, on the flip side, you're going to have people that take this as a opportunistic scenario where I'm already seeing it. Everybody now wants to jump on a podcast. And the reason we're doing it, first of all, curiosity, but another thing you should know about is we're big consumers of podcasts. We listen to podcasts every single day. When we have our laptops open or trading setup open, podcast playing in the background. In the gym, I don't listen to music, I listen to a podcast. So literally for the last 2-3 years, it's minimum one a day, sometimes even 2 a day.
Wow.
So we're big consumers. So, the format is something we enjoy. But I'm noticing a lot of people are just popping up. And they're, okay, Rizz popped off. Okay, now they're thinking, I'm sure he's making so much money, so I'm going to do the same. And I'm just going to start doing these podcasts, not to the same level of class, elegance, professionality that you have done. And what are they looking for? They're not looking to provide value and help people. They're trying to secure a bag. So obviously you're going to inspire people. And just like Joe Rogan inspired you, you'll probably have that same effect on a lot of people. But then we've also, as we laughed about yesterday, people are now just copying your thumbnails, copying your style, copying your formats, just to peddle a product. And even just some of your viral shorts, bar for bar, replicating them, like word for word, just with their funny accent, but trying to do the same thing. So what is your view on that? Or what would you say to these creators that are just looking to jump in for selfish gain and, from a capitalistic, opportunistic perspective?
It's kind of similar to what we talked about earlier, just in terms of like the FURUS, It's the same thing, and if you're not doing it to be yourself, especially in podcasting, it's never going to work. If you're just trying to replicate something, people will see it, number one, but two, you won't be able to keep it up because, again, it's not scripted. It's not, you'll find yourself in a situation where, you got your back against the wall, in terms of you might have someone on, let's say it's in the trading space, you get someone on who's a full-on scammer and you just did it because you thought, this guy's got loads of followers. And you might not have known 100% he's a scammer, and then he comes on and he's saying all sorts of wild stuff. If you haven't got the passion for it, a consumer podcast, for example, or wanting to excel in the skill set, if your mindset is I can get followers, or I can do this, or I can get money, it's not going to work, right? Don't get me wrong, there will be people who probably try that and do it, and they might even get some followers and they might even get some money. But in terms of longevity, the fact of the matter is, if they are faking their passion or personality and they're not being themselves, they're never going to have longevity. Plus, they'll know that they're living a lie, essentially, you know, and that will always eat at them inside, subconsciously, and it might show up later, which is, you know, and it's an unfortunate thing. I'd always say to people, like, just do what works for you, you know? Like, there's people in trading who shouldn't be trading. 100%. There's probably a huge bulk of people in trading who shouldn't be trading, right? They're getting into trading because they want to source funds to go into, I don't know, real estate, or maybe they want to be a professional footballer. I don't know, whatever it may be. But they're in it for the wrong reasons. There's no passion there. And for something like trading, or just generally anything you want to be successful at, even like podcasting, you have to be passionate about it. Because like with podcasting, right? My first 20-ish, no, more, 30, 35 episodes, 1,000 views, maybe less, you know, not really going anywhere. That's fine, like, because I was passionate about it. Well, if you're not passionate about it, and even if you get a big guest and it doesn't work out, or you try and copy some polarizing things and it doesn't work out, what's going to get you through that? Yeah, I think it was Chris Williamson who said something along the lines of like 90% of podcasts don't get to X episode.
21 episodes.
Something like that, right?
I saw that podcast.
And it's crazy. It's crazy because it's such like, I think there's one number that's less than 21, and then there's another one that's 21, right?
Yep.
And it's like, you know, if you just do this many episodes, you're in the top 1%. And I was already past the episode number, and I didn't even thought about it. But that's the passion. That's a reflection of passion. That's a reflection of, this is just something you do because you enjoy it, and you'll make it work. Because you enjoy it, you want to be better at it. You enjoy it because then you'll have the creative process to try and think, okay, you know what, I didn't research this guest, so maybe that's the mistake I made. So let me make sure I research this guest. So as I said to you yesterday, which again I took from Mr. Williamson, was watching the episode yourself. You know, like, if you haven't got a passion for it, you're not going to do any of these things. Even if people, let's say, have the money to be able to pay a team to you know, put the edit all and do all those things, it still won't have longevity, because you're the heart of a podcast, right? You're the beating heart of the podcast, the host. So if you haven't got the passion for the actual podcast, you're just doing it because you're seeing, all these podcasts are doing good and they're monetizing, or they're getting this audience. It's not going to go anywhere, right? Yeah, you might even build the audience, but all I'm saying, it's like you said earlier, the longevity aspect, right? 5 years from now, will they be here? They might do it for 6 months, they might do it for a year, 18 months, but all they're doing is just delaying the inevitable, when they might actually enjoy being a public speaker. Maybe they want, their actual passion is to be able to stand in front on a stage and speak to thousands of people. To put focus on that. Start with standing on stage and speaking in front of 30 people. And the reason you'll get from 30 to thousands is because you have the passion. So you will endure the hardship of only 10 people turned up. But this time 30 people turned up. Actually, you know what? I should have promoted my speech online better. You know, but if you don't have that passion, you're not going to be willing to look at all these different intricacies. You've seen it in trading, right? People who haven't got the passion for trading, but yet they're trading still, they don't go into that deeper knowledge. Right. They just stay on the surface constantly. Like, this surface level knowledge over here with this guy didn't work, but let me try this guy over here, right? Well, the people who are actually passionate, they say, okay, this guy, you know, he has got value. He's not a marketer. He has got value. I've just skipped through the videos. What was my mistake? I skipped through. Let me go and watch this video 3-4 times. That's the passion. That's when you know you have the right mindset. Yep.
So a lot of things to add to that. So sometimes the beauty, as you were saying, exciting. You don't know if the podcast is going to work. You don't know if you're going to make money. That excitement, especially for a man, is what is fulfillment. It's not about reaching the end goal. It's not about being at the top of the mountain, because that's when you have a lot of these guys that won the Super Bowl, won a championship. They have the now what moment. Like, I've just trained for my whole life for this moment, and it's a very underwhelming feeling, because the dopamine you're getting along the small wins along the way, will be far greater than the one dopamine moment of the big win. So in reality, the beauty is you get to continue playing the game. You get to continue to be a trader. You get to continue to be involved. But if you haven't got a passion for it, or you're not doing it for the right reasons, the moment it gets hard, you bounce or you jump ship. And especially when it gets hard, a lot of people find it hard to look within, of like, what did I do wrong? Or maybe I didn't go through the videos properly and so forth. Rather, they'll scapegoat, like, it's that person's fault. And then you go through this blame situation. And it's very interesting, because now people, if they go from mentor to mentor, they'll actually, find more and more negatives. Okay, I'm learning this from this and this from this, and if nothing's working, they get into a position of despair. But the right person will look at this and say, okay, this guy didn't teach me anything. Maybe it was too surface level, or maybe it was just scamming me. It's not good information. But I don't say that's wasted time, because at the same time, you're now learning what did not work. You're learning what could be the mistakes others are making. So, it also depends what you make of it. And we came across a trader, and he's a very wealthy man. He's from the Middle East, and he's multi-millionaire. He's in his maybe 40s or 50s, established businessman, wealthy family. And, he was very active. So we started to speak to him, and he mentioned that he's lost over $1 million in trading, just gambling it away. No risk management, no real strategy. He's just hoping to make it. And he'd been in so many mentorships before. And it's just very interesting that no one caught him and said, look, man, I don't think trading's for you. And when we heard that story, we directly told him, we got on a Zoom call with him one-to-one and said, look, I don't think trading's for you. You've already got your life set up. You've already got family, and you've done well financially. Don't blow it all away in the market, because maybe you might have gambling tendencies and so forth. So, it's also the responsibility of the mentor to see individually how the student is. Some people even take loans to enter a mentorship. What mindset are they entering? Some people take loans to do a prop firm challenge. What mindset are they entering into? And that parlays me nicely into my question. The prop firm space is something that has blown up in the time we've been in the industry, where when we started it was not a thing, and now it is. And it's taking over. It's probably larger than brokers now, and it's where a lot of people are putting in their time and money, because it makes the market accessible in a way that it never used to be. And it started off with maybe just FTMO and a couple other ones. And as we said, it starts off as a monopoly, not very good for the consumer. But as we can see, there's new prop firms popping up every day, and they're making more and more favorable terms. Better spread, better swap, better trading conditions, less slippage, better price, less profit target, no time limit. So it's only getting better and better. What is your views on prop firms, and what kind of moves do you want to make in that scene?
So like prop firms, I see it as a great benefit, of course, but I'm someone who believes in balance, right? So for every positive, there's negatives as well. And I think the negative is there for sure. Like I think a lot of people have come into the industry now, or just generally have already been in the industry, and they've lost their focus. It's purely on funded accounts now, purely on funded. And I get that, again, the positive side is that you risk less capital. You get access to buying power of more capital. So you can accelerate your journey in a sense. So you can now eliminate the tedious process of saving and compounding a small account, for example, or finding an investor, obviously with a track record. So now you can sort of skip that process if you want to go down this route. So that's a positive in that sense. But it's also a negative, because now a lot of people are just focused on, I'm only a good trader if I am a funded trader. So they start associating this title with success when that's not the truth. How many people have got a funded account, for example, but they're still not successful? I've known people before where they got funded in terms of they passed a challenge verification, and then they're funded for 6-7 months, and they're just sat in drawdown the whole time. So technically, is this a successful trader just because they got the title and they got a certificate, or are they just still an unsuccessful trader, but they just have access to this demo prop firm account that could change their life, could allow them to create, get a lot more income than they would off a £500 or £1,000 account? What does it boil down to? The trader. It boils down to the actual trader, the skill set. So in terms of the prop firm industry then, I think it's taken away from that. It's changed the space and the narrative to be funded. And again, I see the positives, and I think the positives do outweigh the negatives to a sense, but you have to be aware of the negatives. And that's something I always like to do, is look at something and say, okay, here are the positives. And I had to learn this the hard way. I used to always just see positives all the time, right? And because of that, anytime a negative would happen, I'd feel very heightened. I'd be like, it would catch me off guard. And then the way to combat that is to look at both sides, from the get-go, or try and observe things from both sides of the pendulum. So when you see, everyone kind of knows the positive side, and it's very natural to see only the positive side, right? And that's why we don't, sort of look at the negative. And plus our minds try to protect ourselves, of course, by avoiding the negative. So the negative side of like the prop firm industry is that people are essentially, it kind of heightens, in my opinion, like the gambling aspect, because it is like I could risk, like roulette.
The upside is way higher.
Way higher, right? So then, and the buy-in is quite affordable, right? Especially with the different, again, the innovation in the space, there's more and more affordable options. There's like 5K accounts you can get now. So they cost like $50, $100, right? So now it's catered to absolutely everyone pretty much, and very, very affordable. Because the way I see it, I remember when I started, no prop firms, £500. I could probably put in a month, for example. I shouldn't have done it, because no doubt I probably had to save and should have been saving really and building that financial foundation. But it's the same mindset. Let me put 500 in, and then I'll change that 500 to maybe 2.5K, and I'll take out the 500, and then That same process. Now it's just a little bit more dangerous, a little bit more heightened. 500, 100,000. You look at that gap, right? That gap is insane. And as I said, it's a positive. There's benefits there, but you have to be aware of those negatives, and you have to come into it and done the work first. That's the bit. That's the bit that people are just completely skipping over, which sometimes I find surprising. Sometimes I understand, because we've seen it all, right? We've been in the space for so long. We've seen every type of mindset. But it still does shock me sometimes when I see people. I've known people, they've told me, I've done 3 or 4 challenges, I failed them. I said, okay. Have you ever seen 10% before to pass? No. You never, I get confused. I think, as in you haven't passed the challenge, so you just haven't achieved it when you've done the challenge. But I mean, and then I'll ask them again because I think they haven't understood. So I mean, but you've hit 10% on like a demo or like a small personal or something like that in say 30 days. No. So I'm like, okay, so why are you taking this challenge? Why have you spent say £1,500 or 2,000? That's on the low end. Why have you spent that money when you've never seen it before? Because it's not like the prop firms are trying to trick you. That's the thing. Some people try and say it's predatory, but it's not. Because they explain the business model. Yep. They say, these are the rules. These are the things you can and can't do. Even in the contracts when you get funded, it says, we can take this account off you. We can say we don't have to pay you. That bit, obviously, if they decide to do it for no reason, of course, that's not good. But it's not like they're saying, they're tricking you. They're telling you, we can do all these things. You sign this contract.
People ignore it.
Yeah. So I think it's good, obviously, the innovation, because the game changer being no time limit, that's a big thing, right? Because obviously trading shouldn't have a time limit. You shouldn't have to achieve a certain target in a certain time frame, because that's not how trading works if you're trading properly, right? You should be able to follow your edge and whatever your edge provides. Obviously, if you have a really good edge, like does give you a high return in a month, great. Obviously, it shouldn't really bother you having a 30-day time limit then, but your edge tells you that. While there's people, as we've just talked about, who the edge hasn't shown them that they'll make 10%, but they still go and do it. So having no time limit changes that, because now people can have the however long they want, 6 months to achieve whatever target may be, maybe 8%, right? So maybe if they do it in 6 months, that's less than 2% a month. But again, it comes down to the trader. Right? Do they have the patience, right? Do they have the discipline? And the reality is, unfortunately, most of the time, no, they don't. And so in terms of me and sort of what I want to do in this space, I had the opportunity, and again, I think it's thanks to the podcast, really. So it kind of goes back to our earlier question, is I was approached by Paladin and Omar, who people would, do you guys know?
Yep.
Yeah?
I've seen them around.
Yeah.
I don't know them personally, but I've seen them around.
Yeah, they're growing quite a lot right now. And for the very reason that they were prop firm traders who were failing at prop firms, right? Then put focus on the actual skill set, the discipline, the mindset, everything. And then redid prop firms and have done very, very well. So they actually approached me and said to me that they're starting a prop firm and would I like to be involved with them? I said, okay. So at this point, as you can imagine, as I said earlier, I've got all these offers, different prop firms, different brokers. And then this one's a little different because these are 2 people I know. I've observed, I've watched them. They're 2 people who have actually are traders and have used prop firm, been through the journey of failing and then actually utilizing and withdrawing 6 figures, multiple 6 figures from prop firms. So I've seen that. They have the values, they're hard workers, they have the right mindset, they're young as well, very similar age, we're all kind of growing at a similar pace. And they didn't have to approach me. What do they need me for? Yeah, okay, I might have a podcast, but what do they need me for? But they just recognize the same thing I recognize in them, which is that the values, similar to what you guys were talking about earlier. When there's, say, money involved or people don't have the right intention, don't get right, but these guys all had the right intention, all 3 of us. So they brought that to me, and then it made sense for me because I said, okay, why would I rather just accept a sponsorship from a random brand? Yeah, I might, let's say FTMO. We know that they've been around a long time. They had the monopoly in the space. Probably aren't going anywhere, even though they're not really innovating. But I don't know them. I don't know who owns that. I don't know what issues they may be facing behind the scenes or not. I don't know if they might turn around and just suddenly do an FTX and disappear, So why, even though out of all of them, that might be the best brand to partnership with, there's still the risk. Versus, if I partner with these guys who I know have the right intention. And then also, we now, again, going back to what we said earlier, the creative control. Because obviously, if I'm partnered, so I can't tell them, hey, you should do this, or I think you should do that. They're going to be like, who are you? We just pay you for sponsorship, go away.
You have an affiliate.
Exactly, yeah. So with this way, it's like, I can say, hey, this will be good for the traders. This will be something we can bring to the table that no one else can do or is doing. Yeah, they might try and copy us later, but they can't do that. So again, it's the exciting thing of innovation. And don't get me wrong, equally, I do sit there and think there's a lot of people coming into space. So I was a bit like, you know, when they came to me, I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know, because there's so many, right? And I don't know if I want to go down that avenue. But I thought timing wise was very interesting because I had all these other offers that were there, and then this came along. I was like, okay. Also, the creative aspect was very interesting, and then being able to try and innovate. That's the bit that I enjoy the most. Like, obviously, you might be able to tell through the podcast. Like, I just like to innovate. Some people have done podcasts. People have done different styles, etc. But how can I do it differently? So then coming with these guys, like, how can we do something beneficial to the community? And that's how ethos is, the community. You know, and that's what I respect about these two guys as well, is that they've provided value to the community in so many different ways. And us three doing it together, I don't think the industry's ready, because we haven't really talked about it or anything. We haven't really mentioned it at all. So I don't think when it does happen, I think it's going to be very, very interesting, because I think it will also force a lot of these brands to change their ethos, to change their mindset and their values. Because right now, a lot of them just focus on, the most value they'll give is like a giveaway. What value is that to a trader? How does that help them? How does that, whether it inspire them, how does it motivate them? How does it make them think at a different level? How does that actually make them into the trader they need to become to be successful at prop firm trading? You know? And don't get me wrong, I know there's going to be challenges, 100%, and I'm scared. I am scared, but I'm also excited at the same time. And it's interesting because I have these moments as we're getting closer where I'm like, do I want to do this? I second guess it. I'm like, do I want to do this? Because it will come with some backlash, no doubt, as well. Like, you own a prop firm, or you're part of a prop firm, or someone might have an issue with one of their accounts where they might have got slipped, or they tried to trade CPI, for example, and they're turning around and be like, you did this, you did that. And it makes me think, do I want that hassle? Do I want to go through that? And then I just think, like, look, you're just letting that's where it's the opposite side, where you're thinking of the negatives too much, right? You got to think about what positive impact can you do as well. And that's what I'm excited for, because I want to be able to do charity work, for example, off the back of it. I want to be able to give back to the community, you know, be able to host things that people can't host, you know, be able to put together things that people can't put together, be able to bring, as we've already started to do anyway, but bring people together that you would never expect to see. And that's what excites me more. So it's interesting, actually, because that was the opposite. As I'm starting to like feel a little scared or second guess, it's like, it's the negatives I'm focusing on here. So let me just balance that out. What are the positives on this side? Plus, you know, with it being a success, hopefully, the podcast, I'll be able to just go absolutely insane. Like, I'm already flying out everywhere and anywhere. But with that, I'll just take it to a whole new level. Like I've told you, obviously, the vision in terms of where we want to get to.
So it's like an evolution where first prop firms started by people that were never known and probably failed traders. They couldn't make trading work, so they started a prop firm. Or maybe not even trading background, just entrepreneurs. That's where I first started. And then as years went on, you kind of got the more influencer type of people opening up their prop firms. Were they traders or not back in the day, who knows? But now this one is the next evolution, where it's by the traders for the traders, in the sense of you guys have gone through the prop firm space, you've been a consumer of it, you've benefited from it, and now you're creating your own. Whereas the other people in the industry haven't done it in that way. So that brings a level of uniqueness where you're notable in the industry, you've always been giving value. Omar, for example, I believe, I might be mistaken, he was within WWE at one point, and now I've seen his social medias. He's providing a good message out there. He's showing his profitability. He's showing the benefits of prop firms and how it can be done. Paladin, again, a young guy doing big things, man. It's actually incredible to see his story and his come up, and taking huge withdrawals from prop firms and actually maximizing. And it's actually now an icon in the industry, because people can look up to him and say, I relate. Why can't I do the same? So the way I believe it is that you can kind of have three people. You can categorize them where you have the pessimist, realist, and optimist. So the pessimist, he's always going to be, should I put money into this, whatever. Maybe they'll give themselves 1 or 2 a year. So what are they going to do? They're going to be so skeptical and pessimistic that they don't know if they'll pass or not. They're going to do 10 trials first. When they've passed 10 trials, done 10 back-to-back 10%, then they're going to put money into it. So they're going to probably find success. The realist, again, is going to be like, okay, as you said, have I done 10% before? They'll take a more calculated decision, but they're not going to be fearful. So they'll do a few more a year and they'll find their success. But the opportunistic person, who's a bit delusional, they'll be like, 10% is easy, blah, blah, blah. And then what they're going to do is they're going to keep paying and paying and paying. And now the idea that it's become a lot more accessible, it's become a lot more affordable. The upside is huge now, where it's not like a broker, you deposit and you risk 30% and hopefully you flip the account. Because that upside might be, maybe I make 10K. But now it's like, maybe I make 50K. So So when the upside is huge, people are going to be jumping into a lot more. And then therefore you're going to have all types of people involved. So I know you have intentions of doing it correctly with the right move, building a community, whereas the other platforms are not going to be doing the same. But the also reality is it's a business. And not every platform can make the ideal conditions, everything perfect, because of the B-book nature of it. It's a closed loop. It's a zero-sum game. So the winners are going to be paid by the losers, which is fine because that's what the Forex market is. There's not money created in the market. The losers in the market are paying out the winners anyway. So it's just creating a prop firm in that analogy. But I am also aware, and I'm sure you're learning as well, that there's tricks the prop firms do to make sure you're not winning, because the more people that win, it's not good for the prop firm. So they'll try and use psychological tricks. They'll try and, for example, in the demo account, in the challenge, they'll make it very favorable conditions, but in the live account, it won't be the same spread. It won't be the same slippage. So you're used to passing on certain conditions, and then when you get the live account, it's not the same. So then you lose it very quickly. Or just different things of certain prop firms will give you very bad spread, but they'll lure you in with good commission, but then you're not getting triggered, or vice versa. They give you very good spread, you're always in the trade. But a fallacy people have is they don't realize, if I wanted to risk $500 on a trade, and therefore I put 15 lots on, so I've assumed $500 loss on that account, but they don't factor in that if there's $7 per lot size, there's another extra $100 that's snuck in on commissions. So if someone's a very trigger happy person, there might be a break-even trader, but the reason they lose that account is they might have traded 1,000 lots on that account, therefore incurred a lot of commissions. So there's all these little tricks, sneaky tricks, psychological tricks. So in your experience of being with prop firms, collaborating with them, they approach you, you look into them, what kind of tricks are you seeing in the industry that keep traders losing, that you could advise people like, okay, watch out for this trick or watch out for that trick to enhance your profitability?
It's a very good question. Very, very good question. So in regards to prop firms, we'll go with the basics first. So like the minimum trading days, for example. FTMO, for example, still 10 minimum trading days on both challenge and verification. I understand the concept of why they have it. I don't understand 10, but I understand the concept of why you would have some. So it's not like just go in and gamble, get one trade. I understand that concept. But 10 days, and just generally, the reason why we have these, and this is something I reflect on, I don't know if it's the actual truth, but it makes sense. I hope it makes sense anyway when I explain it. But essentially, obviously, as a trader, you have to be in sync, right? You have to be following the market. You're going to know the market moves. Why did this move here? Why did it move there? What did it take here? What did it take there? Obviously, it depends on your strategy, but this is what you're going to be doing. You're going to be following your trading pair or pairs. So when you have trading days, if you've used your strategy and you've achieved the target in 2 days, for example, you haven't over-risked, you followed the plan, you've been disciplined, you've done the right thing, but now you got to take 8 days off, right? Yeah, you can pass it just by doing 0.01, etc. But essentially, you're going to take 8 days off, right? You're not going to be in sync. You're not going to be as alert. You're not going to be tracking price as you were, right? The people who realize this, they will. They'll trade a personal, or they will at least do a demo or just paper trade it at the very least. They'll keep in sync, but most won't. Most just be like, okay, I'll just open the chart at midnight, 0.01. We'll look at the chart for the next 8 days. What happens? 8 days goes by. They get the next step, right? Cool. And funnily enough, most people fail on the next step, right? Why? Because their mindset already is that it's half the target, double the time limit. This is easy. I just did this in half of it, basically. This is easy then. Mindset's wrong already. But on top of that, you've just taken this 8-day gap. You're out of sync, right? And most people won't take the time to get in sync. They'll rush in. They're not in sync. They rush in. They think it's easy. They'll blow. Let's say they do it again, where they do pass after 2 days. They were disciplined. Same thing again, though. 8 more days until you're on your funded account. Same principle now. Now it's like, this money's real. I'm gonna be make so much money. I don't have these rules of hitting a target. And you're just out of sync again. Boom. Right. So essentially, for me, it's like a little psychological trick. It's playing on the human nature, or understanding that most people aren't disciplined, and it kind of comes back to the trader in a sense as well. Like at the end of the day, you should realize that you should be doing the right work. But let's say if we just take that to one side, right, and we just focus on the prop firm side. That is a little bit of a psychological trick to say, okay, this is how we can almost allow for people to lose. It's not a harmful trick because, again, they're telling you 10 minimum trading days. But they can understand, they probably just understand most people are lazy. Most people aren't disciplined. Most people are going to be greedy. Most people are, haven't mastered their emotions, essentially. They're not self-aware. They're not being aware of these things, so they're just going to give into it. So that's one thing. Spreads and commissions, etc. That's a good point as well. I think there's a balance there though, because we've seen, I've had someone on the podcast from Funding Talent. And from the conversation with her, what she did was she listened to the traders. She was receptive to the traders, wanted to give the best conditions. So she had 0 commission, 0 spreads, 0 slippage, just pure demo simulation. And by doing so, though, they doubled or tripled their payouts overnight. So the business model collapsed because people were able to game the system now, right? It became too easy. So there is a balance there. And I respect the balance because at the end of the day, for this to be a positive opportunity for people, it needs to be a viable business. And if it's not a viable business, then it won't exist. And some people might see that as a positive. I know there are people of the thought process of that. They completely despise prop firms, right? They think it's bad for the industry. And I understand their perspective because of the things we talked about earlier in terms of the mindset it creates. But there is also the predator. Like I've heard of prop firms where they have absolutely insane slippage, insane spreads, right? That aren't even like industry standard, and they still keep it even with all the innovation because they're just making enough money to justify it. So there is the element of like some prop firms are just not abusing. I wouldn't say they're abusing it, but they're just at the end of the day they're making money. Why make it better? I think they'll be forced to. I think that's the beauty of innovation and people stepping into the space, because as conditions do get better for the trader, more focus is on the trader. These companies who are faceless, nameless, and we don't know who they are, and probably not even traders and just businessmen, they have a choice, right? Yes, they have a huge market share right now, but they have a choice to make. Do we try and adapt and change, or do we potentially phase out?
You know, for the consumer, they usually like find one prop firm, where however they find it, maybe their mentor opened that prop firm, so they stick with it, and you know they have a decent experience. There was no like scam involved, no scandal, but it was just average. So they stick with it and they keep going with it, but they don't even look around the industry and say, okay, well this one actually has bad conditions or less favorable. So they keep failing, not because of themselves, maybe it's because it's not the right setup. But then the flip side of the coin is then they'll try and go from one prop firm to another and to another. What are they going to do? They just keep paying to the industry. So what kind of advice would you give to the trader of like, there's a fine balance between doing market research to know what is most favorable for you, because certain people will prefer certain conditions over others, depending on the type of trader you are. Whereas just staying loyal to one and not even looking around, which is a benefit too, because you're not now splurging money on different prop firms. How would you navigate that?
Due diligence is one. As you said, like doing the market research, it is important because it comes back to the same point we make when we talk about educators. You know, there's so many now. What do? You need to do your due diligence. One major thing you said there is obviously, you know, what is favorable conditions to the trader? So one thing I forgot to mention in regards to like what do prop firms do? There was one prop firm in particular, they reached out to me. And this was before even the podcast had really like started to blow up. They reached out to me to say, hey, Rizz, we're going to give you a free account, free account. You just shout us out. And at first I was like, as you can imagine, free account. This is great. This is amazing, right? Yeah, cool. Let's talk. Let's do this. And bear in mind, I've never collaborated or done any sort of collaboration with anyone before. So then I caught myself. I said, hey, don't get too excited now. I said, what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to pass your challenge of verification, do a payout, and then I know you're legit, if you paid out, that is. And I've gone through the process myself. Then I'll do, you know, shout out collaboration. They didn't say anything at the time. They didn't actually, I said that. So originally I said, yeah, let's do it. Then I said, hey guys, this is what I would prefer to do. They didn't say anything. So I continued on. I ended up passing the challenge, passing the verification. And no problems. It was all good. Very demo in terms of the challenge of verification. Extremely demo, like no slippage, no spreads, no commissions. I was like, okay, that's amazing, but that's cool. But then once I had passed these things, and then I messaged them, I was like, yeah, I passed it, you know, I'll do the fund, I'll do the thing. They were like, then they started trying to have a go at me, like, hey, you didn't shout us out. I said, yeah, I said to you, I'm not going to shout you out until I do this. So they started acting really aggressive in a way. I, at this point as well, clocked on that they bought followers on Instagram, right? So then instantly I'm like, red flag. Yeah, why are you buying followers on Instagram? You know, just build even if you have 100 followers, just build your name. So yeah, I saw that. Then I started to see that they were literally just doing so-called payout interviews where they weren't showing any metrics, they weren't showing anything, and like they were just speaking to these influencers, and these influencers you could see had partnered with all these different prop firms, done all the same videos, etc.
Just fake payouts.
Yeah, and then and I'll touch on that in just a moment again. Well, I'll touch on it now. I had an email from another prop firm where they sent a very similar offer, and they even listed free influencers who had done like this type of video. Like, you know, here's examples, and they were the same influencers. I was like, okay, so this is the fakery that's going on. Even with those interviews, they're talking like, oh, I got a 5,000 payout. How do you get a round number? Profit split and trading and commission. How did you get a round number of 4,500? This doesn't make sense. Anyway, turns out I kept saying to him, let me read the contract for the funded account. So it came back to what you mentioned, where the conditions on the challenge and verification, no maximum trading days, no inconsistency rules, no weekend trading. You can do all these things, right? You can do the weekend trading, everything, news trading. And that's what they're promoting to everyone. Funded account rules, no weekend, lot size limiter, inconsistency rules, you can't do that. All of these rules, and I never got the funded account because I said to them, because I was saying to them, why are you guys getting annoyed? It was really funny to me because I was like, why are you getting annoyed? Because in that gap of me passing the challenge verification, I'd blown up, I'd grown, I doubled my size in audience. I was like, this is a benefit for you, right? And I said to them, why are you getting annoyed? It's really strange. Then they were like, no, I'm going to speak to the CEO. I was like, don't bother speaking to the CEO. I don't like the fact you bought followers. I've looked at your contract. I don't like this. And though I'm not going to expose you or anything, but I don't want anything to do with you, right? I saw other people going through a similar process where they're getting offered from the same one. And I just messaged them and say, look, this is what I've experienced, this is what I've read, and this is what I've seen. Obviously, it's up to you if you want to partner with such a thing, but I probably wouldn't because it doesn't seem legit, right? So it's very interesting, and that's predatory, where you're promoting your rules in one way, but then when it comes to your contracting and funded account, it's the complete opposite. That's predatory. That's wrong. That's scammy in a sense.
Something you were mentioning before is the positive and the negative. Is your plans with this to focus even more on the positives or to try to tackle more the negative side that these platforms have?
Both. Okay. Provide more positives, provide something different that hasn't been done that will actually help the trader. But also, tackle some of these negatives. Be more transparent, try our best to do our best to provide the best conditions that fit the business model still for the trader. Put an emphasis on financial foundations, for example. Put an emphasis on how the trader should be before tackling a prop firm. Maybe that's not good business for a prop firm, right? But that's the whole job, right? As people who have been in the position of these traders, who have witnessed this industry, who essentially we're putting our brands on the line as well, like our personal brands, our names. Because if it goes wrong, that's us gone. That's us finished, right? Exactly. You only have one name. So we wanted to do both. We want to obviously focus on a positive for how we can bring more positivity, innovation, but also how can we tackle some of these things that are happening?
Because the thing of one of the big negatives that I see when it comes into prop firms, positive we all know, but one of the big negatives is that someone could be very, very passionate about trading, be on a learning process, 1, 2 years in, 3 years in, and just because they're not passing those prop firms, give up. When they had a talent to do maybe 10, 20% a year, that there's a lot of hedge funds around the world who have offered them a job or a very high salary job with a commission or whatever it is. To put an example, one of our neighbors, he's a very wealthy individual from the UK. He's a real estate guy. He's probably worth 150 mil, more or less. And he's now entering the space of the hedge fund side when it comes into Forex. The reason is because he's met a guy 6-7 years ago. He's one of his best friends here in Dubai. And he trades Forex. So this is a doctor guy. He's been trading for over 7 years. And he manages to do 5% a month. More or less. So they saw opportunity, shipping some money together. I think it was 5 million euros.
Wow.
And now, after having a portfolio and a track record, now they're setting up everything properly between Switzerland, the UK, and Dubai to now start a hedge fund. So he was speaking to me, and we were speaking about this situation, and he was blown away for the fact of being able to get a double digit a year when it comes into Forex. Because this guy was giving him in 6 months 5% a month. So he was blown. So what I say about this is that's the big negative that you see. A lot of young people with a huge potential, not in a short term of 1-2 years, but yes on a long term of 5-10 years, could be working with these people, could be giving these people a 10-20% and be very successful traders. But just because they were not able to do the prop firm side, they're setting them back. One of the examples is one close friend of mine. He started trading 2 years ago. And last year, he just went through prop firm base. He is not able to pass it yet. He's now on the second stage. But when you see his track record of the year, he just blown one time the limit. But the rest of the 10 months, he was 5%, 4%, 7%. Could not reach that 10%. But his year overall tracked, is at 22% on his second year trading. Now, this sort of person, if he doesn't pass it next year, he might get on the, this is not for me.
Yes.
But if you think about you are in your second year, his technical foundation is also very good. And then moving forward, imagine in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, his skill will just get better because he's very disciplined guy. He's every day watching
Boxer,
London, New York.
yeah.
Used to be a boxer. So he comes with a very disciplined background that he's applied into this. And then, of course, with good foundation of technicals. And psychology is not a big issue because he's learned that if he follows a system, it will pay out. So what I mean about this is more the long-term approach of it. He knows it because we speak a lot, but I see a lot of people give up on this just because of prop firms. That's the big negative that I see.
You know, it's interesting because he's a boxer. He has that mindset of, I know if I go into the boxing ring and I didn't do my fight camp, I didn't prep, I'm gonna get knocked out.
Yes.
So he's got that boxing mindset of being disciplined and knowing if I don't do the prep, I'm not gonna pass. Whereas a lot of people don't take that same approach going into the market. And as you said, it's actually crazy where people might give up because they don't reach the high expectations of a prop firm, but that might not even be sustainable long term. But if you look back at your track, you might be up every month anyway. You just didn't meet the requirements. Coming back to the prop firm kind of thing, it's very interesting because there will be different things they lure you in with and different conditions that they want to convince you of. Let's say the 10-day one. Minimum 10 trading days, and now they're masking it with saying we don't want gamblers, we don't want people just passing on whims. So that's the excuse they're giving, and it actually sounds reasonable. But in reality, it might be a trick on psychology to get you out of sync with the market, and they're pairing out of sync with a heightened emotion. So now they're like, okay, I've just passed phase one, I've got now an easier condition, double the time, but you're out of sync. And then you do it again. If they even get through that, you do it again. Now you've got real money, and you might actually make a profit. Out of sync again. So all of these little tricks. So I think what's important is being aware of them. That's one thing. Some of them are blatant tricks of predatory, for example, crazy slippage, crazy commissions, and that's a negative. But there are other things that are part of the game and actually a necessity for the opportunity to exist, because it's only going to work if there's profitability in the prop firm. So I think it's also knowing to play to your strengths. For example, if I know I'm an intraday kind of trader, but I'm like, but sometimes I like to hold it on the weekend. So let me take this swing account.
Yes.
Or this, okay, I'll take the swing account, but now the conditions are a little bit different and they're going to be playing things different. But also on your psychology, it could be that I now have this opportunity to swing. So you're going to force yourself to hold longer, or you're going to force yourself to trade different to your plan. So you've got to be aware, what kind of a trader are you? Or let's say you're one of those traders that is trading a very small stop loss, 3 pip stop loss, let's say. Therefore, your lot size is going to be large. Even if you're doing good risk management, your lot size will be quite large because it's a small stop loss. Then the commissions might get you. Or you might be a trader where, you know, the stop loss is not too small. Therefore, the lot size limit is not going to bother you. But other traders will be bothered by the lot size limit. So you just got to be aware of what kind of a trader you are, and then pick the prop firm most suitable to you. Because the prop firms are not a trap. They're making money on the people that shouldn't be doing it. So it's the individual's responsibility to determine, are they supposed to be involved in it? So it's not predatory. It's the consumer who is not intelligent enough to decipher if they should be involved or not. Because in the end, if you're trading with it's a fair condition. So the prop firm, you find one with fair conditions. Making a withdrawal, it will be easy because you now have accessibility to a bigger opportunity. You have accessibility to not a 10K account, you have accessibility to $500,000 in funding. So then making profit will be easy, but only if you are the person that should be involved in the first place. But the person who has the mindset of this is an easy opportunity, I can now, I can secure a bag over here. They're the ones that are paying out the right people. So you've got to be aware of the logistics of how it works, the favorable conditions for you, and there's not going to be a trap. But people actually probably end up losing more money these days, I believe, because people have a budget of, if they want to fund a live account, I can only have 5K in savings, I'll put it all in. If they blow it all, they get kind of a trauma, like I'm out of Forex. But with prop firms, you're always like, 500 more. Next time is fine. And they justify it because they know that if they pass it, they get the money back. But in a live market, you blow it, it's gone. So, you might end up spending more in your career in blowing money, not from funding accounts of like putting money into a broker, but actually funding challenges. You will actually lose more in your career. So it's a very interesting dynamic that we are in.
To both of your points, because I forgot about that question earlier, actually, in regards to the advice to people, looking at all these options, is exactly what you said there. Look at your style of trading and find the one that matches that style, right? Obviously, do your due diligence of looking at reviews, going in their Discords if they have them, and seeing what people are saying, etc. Do all that stuff. But big one is understanding that, do I use large lot sizes? And if so, does it have a lot size limiter, or does it have like big slippage, for example, on the higher lot sizes. So if it does, do I go with a different one that doesn't, or do I split my my lot sizes into parts, etc.? You know, these are all the things that a trader needs to make. It's essentially what we said earlier, going past the surface. You know, going past the surface of just this table explaining what the rules are. Let's sign up, done. You know, but going into who am I and what are they offering? Where does it coincide? And then back to your point, very, very good point in terms of, you know, a lot of traders identify success, unfortunately, with prop firm success, prop firm certificate, passing a challenge. And my advice would always be is make sure you build, like for your friend, for example, make sure you're just building your track record, you know, alongside it. I think too many people, as I said, they've lost sight of personal trading, you know, or even investor trading. Because at the end of the day, for a long time, even I thought, why would you get an investor when you have prop firms? Why would you bother, you know? When the reality is, each person's different. With an investor, you have the availability to negotiate. You know, you might be able to say, okay, I want 20% drawdown. I want to be able to, you know, have this profit split. I want to be able to do, you know, you can negotiate the rules. So there's benefits there. Again, benefits and negatives, right? But yeah, with the prop firms, it's exactly what you said in terms of people just need to do their due diligence. People need to have the right mindset, and they need to understand and not identify that success is only success through prop firms by having the certificates. Because one thing I've noticed from Paladin, from Omar, from other very high-level prop firm traders is they don't take it too seriously. That's the biggest thing, right? When they were taking it so seriously, they were failing over and over again because they're just heightened 24/7. As soon as they stopped taking it seriously and started treating it like, I don't know what the right word would be for, but essentially the risk to reward of the prop firm, meaning that, okay, you've had a 20K payout, you go and do 2 challenges, maybe you fail one, or you lose one funded account, no problem, I'm still 20K up. And you're playing the risk to reward in that way, the profit and loss in that way. So they're not allowing it to play such a huge amount on their emotions. Like they're identifying as a failed trader if they failed a challenge or blown a funded account. Instead, it's like, how do I maximize and use this opportunity for what it is, which is just an opportunity to bring an injection of capital into your life because you might not have had it yet. And it does happen. It can change your life. But so can obviously, you know, trading your personal account for longevity. So can building a track record and then acquiring an investor in the exact same manner. So also just not to take it so seriously. You know, put so much weight for it. Don't mistake that for not to be professional. You still need to be a professional. You still need to be disciplined. You still need to do all those things. But don't identify as a failed trader if you failed a challenge. What is that?
Do you think people should be in maybe a bit of a rush though, of like, we don't know how long this opportunity will last that they need to jump into? Or do you think prop firms will be around for a while? What's your view on that?
It's an interesting one, only because of the conversation we had yesterday, remember? And he said, you know, trading might go away, you know? So then it's like, oh, wow, like, you know, if trading goes away, prop firms are gone anyway, right? But in reality, we don't know. You know, there's always going to be speculation on, you know, sort of theories or conspiracy theories or potentiality.
You know, with the doomsday kind of people, they always preach doomsday. And eventually in the world, things go wrong. COVID happens, whatever happens. So then they're always going to be right once. And there's that Michael Burry guy where he's been bearish on the stock market for decades. And then obviously one of the times he was correct.
Worked out great,
so the doomsday thing, maybe not so. But I'm more interested in, like, do you think the logistics of it, the profitability of it, especially as they're moving into a more and more favorable conditions, a lot of them will start dropping off. Maybe regulation will come in. Who knows?
I think it's tough. The reason why it's tough is, on one side I see it, like there's so many, so surely there'll be something that happens, right? But then I think about it, and it's just this exact same model as a broker, right? The exact same model, obviously just done in a different way. Oh, you have this funded account, etc. But in terms of, like, you pay a B-book broker, which majority of these, you know, people use are B-book brokers. You pay your money, doesn't go on the live account. You know, they expect you to lose. People who do actually withdraw, they pay them out. So it's the exact same, and they're fine. And you know, if they have been regulated, they just move, and then they stay operational. So in that aspect, when I observe that space and that side of it, I'm like, they're probably not going anywhere. Equally, though, it all depends on how many prop up that are scams, right, or are predatory, you know, completely, as we mentioned, or how many do like a rug pull, which some have, where they essentially set up, get a lot of income in, you know, just give any excuse as long as possible not to pay people out, and then close down. If that keeps happening over and over, then there'll be issues. Then there will definitely 100% be regulation, because that's normally how it works. Just as I've seen before, like people who offer investments, and they might even be genuine investments. There are definitely obviously the scammers who are able to continuously get more investors on and sort of like pay some of the old ones out and then get some new ones on, and they do that for a while. But there are even genuine ones where they might have just had a banking issue, right? Or they had they didn't get the returns for 1 month or whatever it may be, or they just had an issue getting the withdrawals out for a month or two, which is never obviously good, but it's just an operational issue. It can happen. But all it takes is 3 or 4 complaints to the regulatory body, whether it's the SEC or the FCA. FCA, I don't know, because I've seen they are very slow on what they do, which is surprising to me. But all it takes is a few genuine complaints, normally high level. So it normally takes some sort of professional person to do it, in my opinion, from what I've seen as well. When someone is an academic or a professional rather than just maybe a teenager or early 20s, for example, or student, they take it more seriously, especially when it's more substantial sums. So when it comes to prop firms, it might be a bit harder because the sums are quite low level, 500, 1,000, 2,000. But if enough people complain, that's all it takes, really.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, enough people feeling pain, that's all it takes, really. That's what we see with FTX. That's what we see with, I've seen with other investments where literally there were a bunch of investors. All it was a banking issue, but 3 or 4 complained and the sums that were 6 figures, FCA shut the whole business down and then no one got paid out. They took all the money. It wasn't the FCA though, it was somewhere in Europe somewhere, but essentially it just, even though it's working and genuine, collapses it. So in terms of that side of it, prop firms wise, all it would take would be scammers coming in, and taking a large substantial sums
and getting attention from them.
And getting attention. That's
I used to think, and maybe a lot of people also think, is that as more and more pop up, and people know the mechanics behind them, like people are paying out from the losers. So I also had the belief of the more and more pop up, then the market share is distributed between more firms. So now each firm has less money coming in, therefore can afford less payouts. And as the time goes on, people are getting better at trading. The industry is evolving, and I'm seeing growth in the industry from when I first started of people actually doing better. So you have that combination of less payout power per prop firm, but more payouts required as people get better. And I thought, okay, this is a disaster in the making. But then I actually thought, well, now the conditions are getting more and more favorable. People are justifying jumping in more and more often. So I think you're getting more payouts maybe, but I think you're getting more and more people coming in. Wrongfully so, but more and more people coming in. So I do think it will stand the test of time. But I realized that they're playing on status, especially because they know all of the traders are young men basically. And why are young men getting into trading? Because they want to make money. And how did they get into trading? Because of the lifestyle. So when you look into that psychology, it's actually very interesting because the end goal is to flex. Realistically, the majority of people are getting in to get a Lambo. That's the reality for most people. They might get into that and then evolve for other reasons. It's like you start the gym to get girls and you stay because you felt the health benefits. So you start with you want to get a Lambo and you stay because you enjoy trading.
Yes.
But the psychology is still there. It's a status-driven industry. So now what are the prop firms doing? Very intelligent. They're throwing certificates at you. They're throwing a leaderboard. What is that? Big one. That's all status. That's all badge of honor. That's your accolades. That's something to be proud of, to show your parents, to show your friends, and to show other people in the industry. So what is that doing? Everyone's now chasing that. And what is that doing? That's chasing extremes. That's chasing, I've got to do it in the fastest time. People are ridiculous of posting YouTube videos proud that they passed a challenge in one trade. That tells you you're a gambler. You don't have longevity. You can do it once. That's why you posted a YouTube video, but you couldn't do it over time. So now when you're seeing an industry of people flexing certificates, flexing leaderboards, people are now the innocent young kid. He's like, oh man, I need to be like them. And it's putting a sense of a very high expectation of achievement. And that's obviously going to lead to more and more people failing. So these prop firms are actually very intelligent because they understand the mechanics.
This is what I mean. There's a lot of innovation in a positive manner, but then it comes down to human psychology, right? So it's good in terms of like, it could even be like a competitive edge. It could even lead someone to like make them even better as a trader because they're using it as a competitive side. Probably on the lesser side, that's probably a minority for sure. But it's interesting because every point that we've made so far in terms of the prop firms is, if you notice, it's always on the human psychology, the mass human psychology, right? And that's the interesting thing. You would think that people coming into trading, they're trying to escape the matrix, trying to be the 1%, but essentially they just got that same mass mentality, right? And they don't fix that. And where does that come into? It's just self-awareness, that self-work. Because I've spoken to people and they're not even funded yet. They've not even got the skill set yet of actually being a consistent trader. And they've told me their goal is to go back-to-back top of the leaderboard. I said, what do you mean? What is the leaderboard? You pass the challenge first, or get your skill set down first, your consistency down first. What are you talking about? Your goal is back-to-back leaderboard.
It's because they're driven by validation.
Exactly.
They're driven by these kind of externals.
It's straight to your point, but it's so interesting.
I want to put a thought out there that I've been thinking about when you guys were mentioning about psychology, prop firms. A lot of young people are getting into it. So something I was thinking of, like, my process of evolution when I started 5-6 years ago to now, it was for me very hard psychologically to take losses. Now I got way better. Now emotions are still there. You never remove them. You just get better at managing stress, managing those emotions. So thinking about all of this stuff, thinking about why I had those issues and how people can solve them. So one of the things I saw is that majority of people that have these issues are young traders, because if we see the industry, I don't see people starting at 40 normally, right? Generally speaking, general terms, usually young people. So I thought, okay, maybe the reason is because when I was young, I never took decisions that led to money or to losing money. Because for example, now we own other businesses. Now you also have other businesses that require putting money up front without knowing the outcome. So for example, if we want to start a podcast, we need to buy equipment. We need to hire editors. Like you're putting money up front without knowing if after a year this is going to play out. So I started to think this is going to be my stop loss. Okay, in a trading perspective. The thing is, it will be like a swing trade, right? It won't be like an intraday trade. But when you put money up front, you don't know the outcome of the business. If I have a meeting with our editors and I tell, we're going to do this strategy, or we say we're going to do this strategy for the next 2 months, that's a trade. You're putting money, you're putting time into something and you don't know the outcome. I might make money, I might break even, I might don't make money. So when I start to see this, I started to get better at my psychology, because there's nothing different. When you put money in the market, like you don't know if you're going to make money, you're going to break even, or you're going to lose. But it's part of it. But you have a system. So now we understand business. We know I have a system that if I market this way, my editors do this way, I put this ad, whatever it is, I know there could be a potential return. Same with trading. So what are your thoughts on this regarding these young people coming into the industry, their psychology points? How do you think these sort of things could benefit them?
I think it's a very good point that you make, because they have a lack of experience, right? Because as you say, like, when have they ever been in that position? It's interesting you say that, because I had someone on the podcast or a couple people now, to be fair, where they've had decent businesses as a teenager. So they've experienced risk. They've experienced one individual in particular. His name's Abdu. He actually ran almost like a casino, like a probability game on RuneScape, and he made like good tens of thousands. I don't know if it was more than that, but a good amount of money as a teenager, very young teen. So he learned probabilities, learned risk, learned income skills and financial stability very early, and therefore coming into trading, was like here in comparison to most. And I think a lot of things in terms of like the trading journey and the podcast, for example, who I've spoken to, when they had a rise in responsibility, a rise on their attention to finances, that's when they started to see more progress, because now they've got attention on the right things. As you say, building the experience of handling finance, even if not in the business setting, just generally. How do I make money and keep money, right? How do I make money and create a buffer to help my mindset, for example? Or better yet, in terms of responsibility, I've got a kid or I've got a wife, right? So now I need to make money and be smart with my money. When I was a bachelor, I could just go and, I could afford to be just reckless and do whatever and just live week to week. Now I can't. And then the longevity of that and the experience building sharpens tools, I think. So I think, as you said, like a lot of these young guys coming in, they have no prior experience. And so also another point is that they think about it wrong. So they might pay £500 to get a 100K account. They lose that challenge. You know what they tell themselves? I lost 100K. So now their thinking is completely wrong. Now, instead of like, I lost £500, whatever it may be, it's, I've lost 100K. I'm a terrible trader. And they might do that 5-6 times, and they're telling themselves, I've lost $500,000 in opportunity, whatever it may be. And again, it's that lack of experience. And again, a lack of just understanding of the industry, what opportunity you do have and what you don't. So I definitely think that if you are young coming into trading as a whole, not even just prop firms, but trading as a whole, you want to gain that experience. And that's why I kind of not despise, but I really dislike the notion of people saying like, I'm not going to university, or I'm too good to get a job. That one, a lot of young people say that a lot. Those two things, to be fair. And I always find it so frustrating, because like when I was trying to do it, I had the entrepreneur mindset. I didn't want to be in the system. I didn't want to be in the matrix, whatever. But I was willing to do what was necessary to build experience, to have an income, to understand money principles and show a work ethic. even though it was harder to obviously try and manage the things like work and trade. But I knew those were the things that were going to sharpen the tools. Well, unfortunately nowadays, I don't know if it's always been the case. It might always have been the case. We always get guilty of saying like now's the young people's, they're the problem, right? We're getting old. Well, I'm getting old. But generally speaking, people are just lazy. They don't want to do the work. They just think that, trading is meant to be for freedom. Trading is like what we said earlier, where they're still bringing that mass psychology of, I don't want to work, so I'm going to trade. How does that make sense? Because trading requires 10 times more work than any job you'll ever do in your life, you know? So it just shows a lack of maturity. And as you mentioned, like, you know, the ones who I had one student and he's like 40 or 50 years old, right? And I assumed that he would, due to the maturity, would maybe excel a lot faster. And it wasn't necessarily the case, but he understood the implications of risk. He has not thrown money around. You understand? Like, because obviously he knows what it means. So that's to your point that, you know, a lot of young kids probably could have a decent amount of savings while they just learn the skill, and that they can then utilize in whichever manner they see fit. They could trade. A lot of people do not put emphasis on trading 5 or 10K, right? It's a large amount of money, right? And some won't assume that it is, because like 100K, for example. But you'd be, especially these young kids, they could go full time off 5 to 10K, right? Yep. If they just focus on the skill set. But instead, they will take the 5, 10K and they'll blow it in small increments, in small live accounts, or on all these different mentorships or whatever. Maybe they'll just throw it because they don't understand the power of what that can do for them. Just 5 to 10K. And maybe it's down to seeing, this 19-year-old is an email marketer, or this 19-year-old's a signal provider and he's got 100 grand there and there and there. You know, so this 5, 10K is nothing. It's nothing. It's brokey money, whatever it may be. So it's an interesting point for sure.
I want to touch upon, as you've become wiser and older, you've probably been involved with multiple businesses. You've had probably multiple partners, employees, different teams, and you're managing different types of people. And you have probably an international team because your editors from a different country, whatever. I was interested to know, as you've gone on, how have you dealt with any maybe clashes or maybe bad employees or bad partners or any just situations, because you're not a one-man show anymore. You're a whole team, and how are you navigating that from a more entrepreneurial stance?
So it's an interesting question, because it is something that I've had to learn maybe the hard way. You know, I'm still learning in business 100%, and there's so many lessons to take on board. I've had in the past a business outside of trading when I owned a corner shop, like what would they call it? A liquor store in America, for example, right? And it was at the time, like my best friend, my brother, that's what I call it, my brother's dad, who owned it. And he used like a sort of an emotional blackmail, in a sense, without me realizing at the time. I was blinded to it, to overcharge me, right? And then manipulate me to hire his son as a staff member and then overpay him. And my naivety and my own sort of trust, and being too trusting and not thinking with a business mindset separate to friendship or and my assumption that everyone's good, everyone wants good for each other, everyone's looking out for each other. So I had to learn something that way, right? The hard way. Very big financial loss, but I had to learn that the hard way. In terms of like partners and employees, work ethic, right? Work ethic's a big one. It's an interesting balance, because sometimes you might have a very strong work ethic, like I do. I have a very strong work ethic, very dedicated, willing to sacrifice a lot to be able to do the best I can and provide the best I can. While some others may have a strong work ethic, but they're not willing to go that far. And that's where things get out of balance. And I'm a big believer of fair exchange. So if things get out of balance, that's where resentment builds. And sometimes it might be wrong. So like I have clocked on to sometimes where I'm not recognizing what the person is doing, what they are doing good, and what they are helping me with, or where he is taking a weight off my shoulders, for example. So I've recognized where I maybe am thinking too much. I'm getting maybe a too heightened on one side, and again, not seeing the positives, just seeing the negatives, right? But then equally, I have recognized where I'm bringing more to the table, right? And this is meant to be fair exchange. So where's your side of the table? What are you bringing to this table? So it's been a hard learning curve. And I think everyone has to go through it in some way, right? Hopefully not, but I think there is no flawless record. I think every single business person and titan, right, has been through it all.
Yeah.
And I think the only way they got to where they want to get to or are going to get to where they want to is literally by learning. And one thing in business that I've learned time and time again, and because I don't know if it's because of my good nature, and I think you guys probably have experienced it as well, you have to be ruthless. And it's a weird thing because it goes against my natural nature, and I imagine with you guys too. But in terms of business, people, in terms of money, like you said earlier, money shows you who they are, their character, and sometimes they might be able to fake or come across in a certain way, and sometimes they were that way, but the money changed them, right? Or even if it's not money, social influence, right? Even I've seen people change because they got some followers, right? And it's crazy, and yeah, that's why you have to be ruthless. And I'm honestly, I'm the one person who never thought that was the case. Honestly, I thought you could do business and everyone could be friends. It does not work.
We learn the hard way.
Yeah,
exactly.
I wanted to actually parlay that because a lot of the viewers maybe don't have a business themselves, but actually what you're discussing can apply to everyone because it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad partner or a bad employee. It can be a bad friend, maybe a family situation, a family feud. You know, people are going to face these situations. So in your context, it's maybe a bad partner or a bad employee, and another person might be another context. But how do you, because you're non-confrontational nature, always seeing the best in people, when you have these tough situations and you've concluded, okay, I'm actually getting the short end here, how do you have these tough conversations?
You have to just do it, honestly. And the interesting thing is, it's kind of like doing your first podcast. It's kind of like taking your first trade. It's the exact same thing. Like, you'll have the fear. Everything you want in life is on the other side of fear, right? And you might be scared or reluctant to have this conversation. And the first one will be hard. The second one will be hard. But it will never be harder than the first one, right? And so the more you have longevity in business and the more experience you build, the more it will become second nature to you. Do you think like the likes of, I don't know, let's say Gary Vee, he has this huge media empire. No doubt he's had to fire a bunch of people over the years. And no doubt the first one he had to fire, he was probably a young, quite new in business himself. Probably should have fired him 6 months ago or 12 months ago, but held on, just held it off because he didn't want to be mean or whatever. And then, hurting his business because of it, more than likely. And then he did it, right? And then the second one, probably same thing, but instead of 6 months, it was 3 months. Maybe next time it was 1 month. And then he's realizing the benefit of just sorting it out from the get-go. And now he's able to just say, or maybe even, in the first day, like, you're not cut out, go.
We're actually very specific with who we hire in all of our businesses because we've quickly identified, as you said, the person that is doing maybe not even a bad job, just doing the bare minimum. They're like a cancer in the company because they are going to cause domino effects. They're going to build resentment in the A player that's working 10 times harder. Yep. He's going to say, well, I'm getting the same pay as him, but he's slacking. It's like a cancer that spreads. So it's actually, you have to cut it very quickly. And as you said, as you go on, the battle wounds builds resilience. My next question, so it's something I'm going to tread very lightly on because I don't know if it's something you want to talk about too much. So I'm not even going to name it, and I'll let you discuss how you see fit. But the way I first came across you, actually both of us, he sent me your stories on Instagram where you decided to delete all of your posts, delete your profile picture, and just have a series of highlights. And this is kind of tells your nature of what kind of a person you are because you do want to see good in the industry. And to an effect that basically you were letting people know of a bad situation for the good of the community. What was that experience like? Because I'm sure that came with a lot of like, is this the right thing to do? Am I putting my neck on the line? Am I going to see a backlash and maybe not even anyone's going to notice the benefit? How did you navigate that whole situation?
So it was very similar to what we just discussed in regards to resentment. Resentment and that inner feeling building up and delaying the inevitable, etc. So I used to work at a company. It's called Astro FX. It's not around anymore. And fortunately, in some sense, unfortunately for a lot of people, because good people, on the back end who had to have a very unfavorable situation happen to them. And unfortunately, this is where I learned a lot about the industry. I'll be honest with you. I learned so much about the industry in regards to, how bad it is, how much goes on behind the scenes. This is where I learned about B-booking. I never knew about B-booking to that degree before. I never knew how you could make MT4s, right? And you can put anything you want on those MT4s. I never knew you could show profits, all of these things. I never knew any of this stuff. And it was like literally the craziest realization because then you question everything. So that was something to overcome later. But yeah, essentially before I move on, there were positive, as I said, positive, negatives, right? So there were many positives in me being there. I probably wouldn't be where I am now if I didn't go there. I wouldn't have had the recognition that I got if I didn't go there. Yes, I had to put my own value out and do that myself, but it wouldn't have happened if I wasn't on this platform. I had the opportunity to go on a private jet. You know, I had the opportunity to be in Mayfair. So there are all these positives. I don't discard that, right? But there were a lot of negatives, right? There's a very bad. This is where I learned that how not to do business. This is where I learned that no matter how good you may look on social media or how much money you're making, if you're a bad businessman, it doesn't matter, right? Because they were very bad business people. They didn't know how to hire. They were lucky to hire me, for example, because they never checked my experience in, like, let's say sales or can he talk, can he do this, can he do that. They would just hire based off trying to fit a certain category. So I was the Asian guy. Then they have the good-looking girl. Then they have the black guy. Then they have the South African dude. They're just covering the tick the boxes. Then we can attract and appeal to everyone. Yeah. But they're not checking on. They could do that. That's no problem doing that. But why not also at the same time saying, does he have sales experience? Can he speak? Does he know what's his trading experience like? Is he an organized person? None of that.
And I heard they had reputation of like using certain situations, either their public name or their finances, to kind of leverage their people, whether it may be through, for example, buying someone a supercar, and then that person, let's say he decides to exit. Well, now it's like, I bought you that supercar kind of thing. So, leverages like this, or leverages of the lifestyle of I'll expose you because I have followers and I'll destroy your name, or leverages of I'm in Mayfair, I know these kind of people, kind of these threats, or maybe even just drugs and alcohol. What kind of experiences did you see around?
Yeah, so in terms of like the watches, for example, they tried to do that to me actually. Like, I'll buy you. I've seen it happen to people who had left before. I won't name them because they might be over it by now, obviously. But like they had done it before, where they had bought someone a watch apparently, and then were like, we paid for that watch. When knowing my experience personally, no doubt that guy probably worked for that or probably made that amount of money or way more.
So it was a bonus.
And it was like a bonus or a gift, because that's what happened with me. So I didn't want it. They kept trying to say to me, and in one sense it's a positive because I never knew about watches and what they can do outside of being an investment or wearing it, but more so the networking side. Because I was explaining that to you yesterday. I had no idea about watches on that side of things, and that's a positive. So I learned that bit. The negative side though was that they kept trying to force me to buy one. Right? I was never bothered. I wasn't bothered. Their reasoning was the whole like respect and networking and stuff like this. But in essence, they just wanted it to look like their team was winning and their team had all this image. And I said, no, I'm not going to buy one. So then they turned around and said, we'll buy you one. You're good, you do good stuff. I was like, cool. Okay, you want to buy me one? You buy me one, whatever. And then they started to take away from the bonus, we're taking this money and we're going to buy you so I'm buying it. Okay, cool. Whatever. I'm not going to argue with you, whatever. Do what you want. But around a similar time is when I actually found out about what they were doing, in terms of the setup of their fund. So now they essentially had a prop fund, but in a whole different scheme, a whole different structure, which was very, very predatory, because they were making out that you're gonna have a 6-figure salary. They were making out that you could manage 7 figures. All of this all being demo funds, making out they had investors. Now, a lot of people would sit there and say, you would have known this, you were there, right? And I understand the perspective of like, oh yeah, you would have been around, but they were very smart to be away from us. And I think that was because of their past experience of getting close to their employees. So they'd made this new decision to be away, as well as probably understanding that some of these staff members, if not most of those staff members, probably have good morals. So we probably shouldn't share this information. And I would ask questions, and a lot of us would ask questions. We would say, who are the investors? Or, is there actually going to be a 6-figure job? If someone does do this, will this happen? Yes. Okay. And plus, at the time as well, bear in mind, we didn't know about all this, like MT4 could be manipulated in this way, or like what B-booking was on this level. So I'm seeing obviously live accounts. I'm seeing people getting payouts, I'm seeing people signing the form. I'm getting the form signed and sending them off to an email to get verified. So all of this trails there, and I'm asking the questions, the answers are being given, and it's being backed up by the MT4s, etc. I'm like, okay, I can't say anything. Like, yeah, there are some little things, and I do worry about little things, because obviously, let's say if you're someone who promotes a product and said as part of this product, I'm going to do a webinar every week, and you do 2 webinars. If you can't be consistent in just doing a webinar, how are you going to, I'm worried about the word of 6-figure and all this stuff. Anyway, long story short, it comes to a point where one of the people leave, right? So these guys would have their course and do like in-person courses and stuff, but they wouldn't teach it themselves really, right? They would have someone else teach it, that's not a problem. But that guy had left, so they needed someone else to fill that role. And at this point, obviously, I'd built my own name, I'd provided a lot of value, and I could talk and everything. So they were like, "We want you to be that guy, right?" So Nat calls me to his apartment. He sits me down, like kind of like this, to be fair. We're sat there, and he goes, "Oh yeah, so this is how the fund's set up." Well, first he goes like, "What's your vision with us? What's your vision? What's your time?" I was just like, "Look, I just want to make good money and build my name. They were talking about opening these offices everywhere. That was part of the ploy, marketing thing. They came to Dubai. I was like, "Look, I want to run the Dubai office." Because bear in mind, I think it's all real at this point. I want to run the Dubai trading floor. You can do done. If you stick with us and have this longevity and that loyalty, etc., that's done. Cool. Oh, by the way, this is how it's set up. It's all fake funds. We can just set up the MT4. Yeah, he showed me. He showed me a 5 trillion account on MT4 as a joke. He was like, "I made this account as a joke." He said, "You can make Astro USD or Rizz USD, all this stuff." And it was blowing my mind. Obviously, I'm sat there like, "Wow, this is amazing, man. This is incredible. Wow."
Was this through a broker or?
Yes, Infonox broker.
Okay.
So they it was like I don't know the ins and out of that bit. There was just like 2 guys from Infonox, and they got investigated with the Gurvind Singh documentary that came on BBC. So that's already kind of had a different, not as part of this, but I think that was a separate thing they did, like a PAM account or an investor account that went wrong. Anyway, yeah, they were involved, and that was how they were doing it. That's how they had access to MT4, and that's how they had learned about it. And I'll be honest with you, one of the guys from that Infonox guy, he literally looks like a Bond villain. I used to say it to people, that was one of the reasons why I felt a bit off. Because I was like, this guy looks like a Bond villain. It was the weirdest thing. So I felt a bit off about that as well. But anyway, that's how they were doing it, through that connection.
That's crazy because they're leveraging not just that prop firm opportunity, they're building the whole brand of profitability, education off completely, let's say, a demo, fake server, essentially.
Exactly, yeah. So like my thing was, you didn't need to do that. Because just like FTMO and these prop firms, they tell you up front, these guys had a reputable name. Obviously, it had been damaged before, but still reputable name. Loads of people idolize these guys, right? And that's what they love.
Part of the reason I even got into the FX was because I followed these guys, and it piques my curiosity. I think a lot of people ended up in the industry because of these guys. So they were doing a good thing, putting out a good brand. They were consistent, nice YouTube channel, all of that. And then I think things started to deteriorate. And it's that longevity thing we said.
Exactly. And people idolize them. And they could have easily just said, okay, let's do this. We're going to make a simulation account. A simulation product, right? Where you get mentorship from us, education from us. You have access to our trading floors. And, if you profit on this simulation account, we will pay you out. So the exact same model, but explained for what it is, right? The element that would be missing, and they couldn't do, right? Which I think was probably the biggest selling point, and this is why it's predatory, is the 6-figure salary and 7-figure account. Because who, as a retail trader, and they're not being told to make 10% a month. They're being told, on average, 4 to 5% a month. If you can achieve that month on month, yes, you'll have some break-even months, negative months. As long as you can achieve that over the year, you can have that opportunity, right? As a retail trader, yes, the buy-in is expensive, but if the payoff is the ability to have 6-figure salary and a 7-figure account, for them, it's like, wow, where else am I going to get this opportunity?
So the way it works is like, let's say you pay an amount. I don't know the amount. Let's say you pay 20K. You enter in that circle, and then they test you for a bit.
They had tiers, right? So they had like 5, 10, 20, 50. And then you could go beyond that. There was only, I think, 1 or 2 maybe who did go beyond that. And then based on the tiers, you would have access to certain things, right? So trading floor or a one-to-one mentor or this specific type of course.
And when did the 6-figure salary comes in place?
The end of the 12 months.
So basically it's a whole scam,
Yeah. So at the end of the 12 months, I don't think they had anyone. They had people who were profitable. So I even had people who did get payouts. They got their money, the money they had put in out, but it was very difficult. You had 1 to 5 leverage, for example. You had no holding trades over the weekend. 1 to 5 leverage is a killer. It was 1 to 4 to begin with. Right? People couldn't even place on a 25K account like one lot trade.
Well, usually a 100K account is usually 1 to 100 leverage, but you can call it a 100K account, but with 1 to 5 leverage, it's not a 100K account. It doesn't have the buying power. That's already a bit of, what I find very interesting, that it's like an empire fell where they were the biggest name in the industry, office in Mayfair, private jets, moving to Dubai, like on the highest high, biggest name in the industry, and then it just collapsed.
Well, I'll tell you something about Dubai though, right? When they posted the Dubai thing, they got the most sales ever. Because Dubai, you guys know, you live here, right? Everyone wants to be in Dubai. So when they did that, and the thing is, I now thinking back, obviously, well, knowing that it was what it was, back then, obviously thinking it was real, I didn't think anything of it. But now knowing they knew what it was, obviously, they knew they were never going to open here. Because imagine if they got caught scamming here in Dubai, you know? So they knew 100% they were never going to open here. Right? I didn't because I thought it was all real, but they knew it was fake, so they knew.
Watching the stories of them doing office viewings and hyping.
You know how easy that is, though, right? Now, obviously, again, like they just went and viewed offices, hyped it up. The amount of traffic they got just off that, just because of Dubai, because they've done Miami, they've done all that. But I think it's been rinsed there, that idea. But Dubai, and again, it gives a sense of legitimacy because no one's going to mess around here, right? I'm sure there are people maybe who do or try, and they probably do get sentenced accordingly. But they knew they were never going to open here, never. So again, just very predatory, and it's very unfortunate. So like for me afterwards, so when I learned that information, I said, okay. I literally went home. I remember going home and I said to my wife, I gotta leave, because all my worst fears or my questions have now been answered finally with truth, which shocked me massively because you guys don't know me like massively. You don't know me like, let's say, as a we see each other on a day-to-day basis. We take the surface level right now, for example, we're getting a bit to know each other a bit more. But I would hope that you could see in terms of my values of who I am. Bear in mind, I worked for this guy for 18 months. Yeah, we didn't have sit-downs and all that, but around each other enough for him to hopefully observe my values and my character. So for him to tell me, it's still to this day, I do not understand his thought process of telling me that news, right? Because he should have known for the person I am, I was going to leave, right? So it's honestly, to this day, I do not understand. Again, bad businessman, right? Because if he was a good businessman, he would have recognized, okay, I can't tell him this because he would do something or he would say something or he would leave. So I won't tell him. But bad businessmen, because they don't know their staff, didn't get to know where the strengths are, where the weaknesses are, all that.
I mean, I remember watching his stories, and probably 5 days a week he'd be in tape in London, central London partying. So I was thinking, how has he got this empire going and getting drunk every night? It's
it's what you said earlier, I think, in regards to people looking up to people, right? People, the people coming into the industry looking up to these guys, and then sort of I need to be like that. They would fester this culture of drinking, partying, right? They would literally have drinks, and not to say that I didn't partake or anything. I partook, right? I was there. I even hosted this, and again, this is one of the positives in a sense. It was like I hosted a Halloween party, right? And bear in mind, this is actually in Mayfair. This is actually in a building with hedge funds. And now you got a bunch of 20-year-olds in fucking Halloween costumes running around Mayfair, right? So that's like something I'll never be able to do again. Positive, right? And me being me, I got to learn how I could actually host events and put things together. So that was a benefit as well. But in essence, though, that was the culture. There wasn't a focus on trading. There was a focus on, hey, we've been on the floor. Anyone who comes to the floor, look, videos of people drinking and we're chilling with them. In reality, being there for 10, 15 minutes and chipping because they don't want to be around the students. But yeah, they create this culture. Like, not to forget the other partner as well, who I don't speak on too much because I don't speak on like his trading ability. I've always said that I don't respect the fact that he was party to that, right? It kind of went against his whole brand in a sense, in terms of I'm a woke person, I'm for the people, I'm trying to awaken people's minds to this matrix system, but yeah, I'm going to scam people through this. It doesn't make sense to me. So I was very disappointed in that sense. But his thing is that, and yeah, people can have their opinions on mushrooms or DMT and all these different, very psychedelic drugs, and whether they're beneficial or not. But the amount of people who would message and be like, yeah, I'm taking DMT, man, I'm taking this, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Whether you think it's good or not, it's just insane to me because of the amount of people who were saying like that was their thing. They thought that, they're going to connect with me because I'm saying that. It really showed me just how, I don't want to say sheep-like, but how much they idolized the wrong people. And this is where I've learned about the curtain of social media. That's why even with the podcast, and I have certain guests on, as you asked earlier, I don't put any weight into anything on social media, positive or negative. I try and take it with when I'm sat opposite them, when I have the conversations with them, before camera, off camera, meal, or on camera. Sometimes I only get to speak to them on camera, and that's it. But that's what I put weight into, because that's the real bit. That's the bit that it's hard for people to fake. And what value will they give in the conversation versus social media? Yeah, because someone could have a lifestyle marketing page that looks pure scammy, but they're a real person and a real trader, and they have value, right? Doesn't happen too often, but they can. But then equally the other side, right? And every person I've met almost, they've always told me this person's a scammer, that guy's a scammer, this guy don't trade. So I have to try and silence it. Otherwise, it's just too hard to take sides and have these ideas. And that's something that I wouldn't have been able to do back in the day. Back in the day, I would have been the guy who would have been like, he told me, and I like this guy, and he seems genuine, so that guy must not be genuine. You know? So I kind of just try and keep the neutrality as a podcast host. But in terms of what happened with that, it was just weighing on my shoulders. I don't like drama. I don't want beef. I've got a wife and kid, for example. And my wife was like, just leave it, leave it. And I was like, look, I can't leave it. I can't. And luckily it wasn't me who did it, right? It was a account they hacked of mine. And then someone must have got access to that account and put all the information out there, all the evidence on there. And they did it in a very good way, I think. No self-promotion. They didn't even like say, go follow Rizz or go buy this course. And that's normally what 99% of like exposing and beef is. Yeah. They just put all the evidence out there and that was it, and that was it. That literally one time, done, finished. And yes, I got threats. I got people, I had someone call me like, we're going to come to your house. You want us to come to your house? And it was a little, don't get me wrong. Even though I'm someone who backs themselves and believes in themselves and stuff, but mainly for me, it's that I have a wife and kid, right? And the funny thing is, I knew who it was. This is how stupid they were. They tried calling a private number. I knew what was happening at the time, so I knew, let me not answer private numbers at this time anyway. I try not to anyway, but just specifically at this time, I'm not going to. So then they call on the actual number. This is how stupid they are. First guy who picks up the phone, and when I pick up the phone, first guy's like, stop doing what you're doing. Hangs up. And I was like, what the heck was that? I answer again. It calls back again. Now it's someone else. So now I know already this person's told this other guy to try and threaten me. That guy doesn't know what he's doing and just bottled it. So now this guy's coming on. I recognize the voice, right? At the time I didn't say it, but I was thinking, I know this voice. And it was the guy from Infinox, right? What was his name? His name was Tristan, right? And he was in that documentary with that Gurvind Singh on BBC. So it was him. Right? And I was like, why would this guy call me, right? And he's saying, like, you're messing with people's money, man. You want us to come see you in so-and-so place, right? I don't live there anymore, South Bermondsey. And I did live there for a good, I think year and a half, 2 years still after that point. So I didn't run away, in case anyone thinks that. But it was stressful, right? I'm not going to sit there and pretend like I was just there like, yo, come here. Though I got advice from a good friend of mine, who you guys know as well, who said, you should have said, tell him to put, I'm going to put the kettle on, tell me when you're coming, right? And I love that because in those situations, that's where, again, I learned you have to be just absolute savage. You have to back yourself. And if people come, handle it, whatever. Yes, obviously you have a wife and child. And yes, I didn't want to put the stress on them, so I don't think I told them about it. But it was a little stressful. But I had good people to be able to say, hey, this is the situation. And they were ready to back me if necessary, right? And so, yeah, that was it, really. They did that one threat. And that was it. And I said, even though on the phone, on the threat, I said, like, that's not my account, man. Like they hacked it. They must be on their side. They don't play funny with me. This, that. And I was like, look, they illegally hacked my account, right? So now I had to start fresh and everything. And that's the funny thing with social media. Like this is the third account or fourth account I've had because they've taken down the one I have now because they took down 3 or 4 accounts. Wow. So I've had to. The first account they took down whilst I was still there because I think they knew that I was trading. I was making money from trading now, which they don't like, obviously, because now I won't need a job with them, right? I'd built 8,000 or 9,000 followers. I was about to hit that 10,000 mark. And that's an account I had from when I was in school. And it had 3,000 posts on it because I documented my whole journey, everything. And that was the saddest thing, really, for me anyway. So then they took it down. And they pretended like they didn't, but they took it down. And they were like, oh, maybe we can get it back, maybe we can't. And they didn't, obviously they didn't want to. So I had to start fresh. And then they took that account down. That's the one that all this information came on. But anyway, for me, it was like, this information had to get out there. Because it's not right. Like there are people out here who have taken, like bear in mind, this is how predatory they were. They would tell you, like, one of the guys who's like their manager, for example, would be like, telling the staff like, okay, these are the interest rates at these banks and they will give a loan of this much and it will only cost them that much. Oh. Or here are credit lines they can use, like PayPal credit or this or that. I never would do that, ever. I would have literally, people say they can't afford it, I'd say, look, done, finished, right? So I've always kept my values. Obviously, I still thought it was legit. And there are people out there to this day who probably say, Rizz, you did me over. Rizz, you did that. And that's a negative and something I just accept. Like at the end of the day, I was there. I didn't know. They won't know that, and they will have their opinion, and that's absolutely fine. The one thing I've always said to people, now they can't do it because they're gone now, which should hopefully prove some things. But I always just said to people, if you don't believe me, right, you just go work there and realize what it's like, because it's a very negative place to work, very manipulating people against each other, very toxic environment, very, very toxic environment. Luckily, I've worked in like sales background, so they're very toxic environments anyway. And luckily, I'm just someone who handles themselves, believes in themselves, back themselves, knows what I've always known that I've had value. So it never worried me. But there was one guy in particular, for example, I won't say his name, but he was depressed, man. He would cry literally on my shoulders. He did it 2 or 3 times because of how they were treating him. You know, they sold him an account, knowing it's fake. They sold him an account. And then they would obviously see his stats. And bear in mind, you've got the 1-to-4 leverage, he's got all this pressure, as being one of the mentors as well. And they're seeing that he's not winning. And what are they saying to him? You're a loser. You're a shit trader. Yeah? Why do you even bother trading? Look at your stats, you're shit. And he's literally breaking down, bro. Right? And crazy. And bear in mind, I looked up to these guys. I looked up to them. I thought these guys, that's why I went there. I was like, these are the best of the best.
Yeah.
Best traders. What's going to help my trading? Go be around these traders. And it was just shocking to me to learn. Now, this is why you never idolize people. And ever since then, I never put anyone on a pedestal. No matter how good they may seem, no matter how good they may talk, or even the value they have. I just don't put them on a pedestal. I respect them, respect the value, but I just don't put like any weight behind like, I want to be like this guy, or I want to be around that guy. That was my lesson. But there's still people out there who need to learn that lesson for sure, 100%.
Bro, crazy story. Flip side, let's end on a positive, because that's actually a crazy story, and I'm sure a lot of people will be like, wow, I had no idea. But I'm going to ask this question because I think a lot of people want to ask you this question, and hopefully you've never been asked this before. You've done a lot of episodes now. You've met a lot of traders. I'm sure there's a few that stick out to you. So I want to ask you 2 things. Who are your top 3 guests? It doesn't matter on views, doesn't matter how the episode did, how it was even received. Just personal 3 favorites of these 3 guests. I really enjoyed getting to know them. I really enjoyed that episode. And then the ones that you thought stood out in terms of values and these kind of things. Okay, these are the guys that I think are doing big things in the industry.
So one would be my mum's episode, simply because I got to learn a bit of a perspective that I didn't know. Because as you can imagine, obviously, especially in the Asian culture, but generally with your parents, they don't necessarily openly share their dark times, what they had to endure. So I got to learn a lot in that sense, and I gave her a platform to tell her story. Me and my sisters have always told her to write a book, tell her story, be a life coach. She has that in her, but she's always been reluctant due to social media, and she sees the sort of negatives and the hate and all that, and it holds her back. So it was a great opportunity to be able to do that. So that was number 1. Okay. Who else there? I would say my brother-in-law as well, just for the same reason, just to give a platform to tell the story, right? And that's what they appreciate. But in terms of like second one, for example, it's a good question, honestly.
You've done over 80. So
I've done just too many.
It's kind of difficult to process a lot of them.
In regards to like ones that haven't been released, for example, I think Ali Khan, the person we went to dinner with yesterday, was very good because I learned to respect the intricacies that people can go into, and the depth that they can go into, and more importantly, have a balanced point of view, because he's an ICT style trader, but yet he doesn't give in to the cult. He sees the cult. He calls it for what it is, and I respect that a lot. And and it was a good learning curve for me because he has ADHD, so therefore it was something different to navigate as a podcast host as well. So I got a lot of value, some stuff that went over my head, but I got a lot of value as well that really made me think. But then also I got the test, so I really respected that. And I would probably have to say Raja, right? Because Raja was obviously the one that really pushed the rock over the hill, if you will. I'd been building this momentum, building this whole thing, and he just, by doing one with him, he pushed it over. And what I respected about him is that he kind of has it all now, in terms of he has the lifestyle. He didn't have the lifestyle before, and he built his audience before the lifestyle, so I respected that. He has a very simplistic system that he sticks to, and though I don't know it, I've seen so many traders who have given the feedback that just the simple advice, maybe not the system, but just like 1 or 2 trades, 1 or 2 pairs, 1 session, whatever it may be, just that very simple advice has helped them massively. So I respect that. But then also, he knows what he's doing. I learned from him. I really learned like the power of just one line in a podcast. you know, and you know how you can be very intentful and don't have to be scripted, but you can be intentful in how you speak. So I have to respect the fact that, you know, if it wasn't thanks to him, maybe I would have learned that later. And if it wasn't thanks to him, we wouldn't have had the response of Omar's podcast, which then did 300K and surpassed his. And therefore, I wouldn't have maybe had you guys on. I maybe wouldn't have had like all the, you know, been able to travel and do all these things because the momentum might not have taken place then. It would have happened, I have no doubt, but it wouldn't have taken place then. And obviously, a big, you know, shout out to him in the sense that at the time, even though I was the name was starting to go there, I was only 5K subscribers. And bear in mind, this guy's got 150, maybe 200K followers. I think he's got a large subscription. You know, he's big. You know, he didn't need to come on, but he came on. You know, and yeah, he might have seen that I was starting to do good things and stuff, but it showed me that, you know, people are good. You know, regardless of what people think of him, no problem. No, whatever, he doesn't care what people think of him.
It's kind of like the energy you want to give out, where he gave the little guy a chance,
exactly,
which is something you want to do yourself.
Exactly,
bro. It's very cool for me also to be on your platform and meet these kind of guys, because for example, Umar, he's one of the few traders that I've looked up to for a very long time. Been following him for like 5-6 years. Raja too, he's a legend in the game. Everybody knows him and enjoys his content. So bro, what you're doing here, as we said, it's crazy stuff, and just want to end with a thank you for coming on. And from both of us, we wish you all the best with all the moves you got coming up. I'm sure you're going to smash the numbers of the podcast. It'll keep growing, and the snowball will keep avalanching. So bro, thank you for coming on. Thank you for your time.
No worries.
I move to Dubai to live.
Definitely. Before we go
there,
these guys are going to do big things, 100%. So make sure you subscribed. Sorry, I feel like I'm going into.
I don't know how to do that. It's actually you're better.
Make sure you subscribe, and just support the movement, man. Because like I said, these are two great guys, high up in the field, but they're going to expand outside the field, and that's what we need, because, you know, people need to hear the stories outside of trading. You know, because as we talked about, most people probably shouldn't trade, right? So for you guys to then have those conversations, that will help people who right now shouldn't be trading, but they may find their niche that they should find. But just the powerful conversations that you will have, the questions that you ask, it's going to be incredible. And I'm excited. While some might be there like, why is he on there? That's competition, whatever. But I'm excited because I know your guys' game. You know, I know your guys' quality. You know, so I know that I'm going to have to up my game. So I'm excited.
We'll help each other. I mean, that's for sure. And thank you
100%.
for being episode number 1. It was a lot of fun. Cheers, bro.
Thank you.